From a new dimension that was just leaked to a brand new mob that can organize your items, here are the greatest Minecraft facts you didn't know. Have you ever wondered what this portal-looking structure is for in Minecraft's ancient cities? Well, Mojang essentially just leaked what they're planning for it, as in the new trailer for Minecraft Dungeons 2, we can see that this portal will lead to the new 4th dimension, which is called the Sift. This dimension will have a blue, soul-based theme, and we don't know a whole lot more about it other than that, but what we do know is that big features often make their way from Minecraft Dungeons into the actual game, just like we saw with the mace. So with something this big, and with the fact that players have been begging for a new dimension for years, I think it's safe to say we will be getting this new dimension in the not too distant future. One thing we do know about this new Sift dimension is that it will feature a new mob called the Sifter. This hasn't been officially announced yet, but this new mob was leaked in a recent promotional screenshot for Minecraft Dungeons 2, and then we got a much better look at the mob, along with its official name after the Mattel store listed a Baby Sifter plushie on their site just a few days ago. In this screenshot, we can also see the Baby Sifter shown next to some other mobs, which are presumably the adult version of the Sifter. And aside from the mob's appearance, the main thing we know about it is that it will likely be able to sort your items for you, which seems very similar to what the Copper Golem already does, so I'm not sure what they will do to make it different, but we will just have to wait and see. Bedrock is considered a transparent block in Minecraft, which is interesting since it is a full block and also isn't see-through like glass. This means that beacons can actually go through bedrock, which can easily be seen by getting onto the nether roof after building a beacon below. What's also interesting is that only in the end dimension, bedrock will stay on fire forever if lit, similar to how netherrack works. The desert pyramid is a classic Minecraft structure that has pretty good loot and free TNT for the player if you can avoid stepping on the pressure plate. But did you know there is a secret room in these temples with even more treasure? That's right, as if you come over to this corner in the temple, you will see a patch of sand where there should be sandstone. If you carefully dig away the normal sand, you'll see that there is a good amount of suspicious sand here which can be brushed to get extra loot. You'll usually get pottery shards, but you can also easily pull gunpowder, TNT, or even emeralds and diamonds, so definitely don't skip this next time you're looting one of these. Did you know you can make zombies dance in Minecraft? This is done by placing a bunch of sunflowers and then topping them off with carpets. Then, if you surround the area with fences to keep the zombies in, you'll see that they get scared of the sunflowers and just start spinning and dancing like this. The backside of paintings in Minecraft looks like a wooden texture of some kind, which makes sense, but did you know that this wood texture doesn't match any of the actual wood types in the game? That's right, as if we place all of the different wood types side by side, we will see that none of them actually match this texture, which makes you wonder why Mojang didn't just use the normal oak plank texture instead of making this new one from scratch. When end cities were first added to Minecraft in Snapshot 15W31A, a level 1 beacon with a speed effect already active would naturally generate inside of the end ships where you get elytra from. This made the ships easier to see from far away and also provided a nice free speed boost, but the developers said this was only added for testing purposes, and it ended up being taken out in the next snapshot. Even though this would have been cool to leave in, it was likely never taken seriously since it would have made beacons way too easy to get compared to having to summon and fight a bunch of withers. Many players know that you can use a glow ink sac to make the letters on your sign glow, but what many don't realize is that by using a normal ink sac, you can remove this glow effect, which is a lot easier than just having to break and replace your sign and then type your text in all over again. Beetroot is often cited as one of the more useless items in Minecraft, but it actually has a couple of uses you might not know about. Most players just think of it as a way to make beetroot soup, which isn't the best food for the effort you have to put in to farm them. But beetroot can actually be used as an alternative way to make red dye as well. Not only that, but you can also use beetroot to breed pigs, which is a good way to put them to use and save your carrots and potatoes for other things. Tripwire can be so annoying in Minecraft, since if it is hooked up to something dangerous like TNT, you will still activate it even by breaking the tripwire. Luckily, we can turn ourselves into professional disarmers by simply using some shears, as when they're used to break the tripwire, it will not send a redstone signal, allowing you to easily deactivate any trap with ease. Slime farms are usually made by setting up a flat area for them to spawn, but this can be annoying since you have to find a slime chunk first, which is hard to do without using external tools like chunk base. Luckily, there is another way, since baby pandas have a 1 in 700 chance to drop a slime ball when they sneeze. This doesn't sound like a lot, but by breeding a bunch of pandas and using golden dandelions on the baby pandas, they will stay small forever, and the math works out so that normal baby pandas will drop one slime ball roughly once every 58 minutes or once per hour for simpler math. So if you just set up a hopper minecart system below the baby pandas, you'll have a fully automatic slime ball farm. Emeralds were originally supposed to be rubies, but the Minecraft dev Dinnerbone is actually red-green colorblind, and as such, he had trouble seeing the difference between redstone ore and ruby ore. Because of this difficulty, rubies ended up being scrapped altogether and emeralds were chosen instead. Nitwit villagers are just like your unemployed friend, as all they do is sit around all day long and don't do any work like the other villagers. But a funny detail I bet you didn't know is that the Nitwit villagers will actually wake up 1 minute and 40 seconds or 2,000 ticks later than the other villagers. Since Minecraft days are only 20 minutes long, this is the equivalent of sleeping in for 2 hours, which is a fun detail. If you've been playing Minecraft for more than a couple years, you'll remember that red and brown mushrooms used to generate in caves sometimes, but you might have noticed that these are never found in caves anymore, and this traces back to a bug that happened when coding the caves and cliffs update. This bug, tied to low underground elevation levels, broke the mushroom generation completely, and Mojang never really got around to fixing it, so we will probably never get cave mushrooms back. Speaking of Minecraft worlds, a single world in Java is 60 million by 60 million blocks, which translates to about 3.75 trillion chunks. Luckily, you can easily store several worlds on your computer or other device, since only the chunks you actually visit and load are stored as data on your hard drive. But if you were to actually load every single chunk in your world, this would take up roughly 100,000 terabytes of storage space, or about 100 petabytes, which is way more than you could ever fit into your PC or console, even if you had the money to buy it all. In addition to the wool stairs and slabs, which are coming soon in Snapshot 7 for 26.3, Mojang just confirmed they will be adding concrete slabs and stairs in all colors as well. This update just keeps on getting better and better for builders. Axolotls are cute, but they're also surprisingly clever combat allies in the water. When an axolotl's health drops low in a fight, it'll flip onto its back and play dead. While pretending to be down, it slowly regenerates health, then rejoins the fight once it's healed. If an axolotl helps you kill a hostile mob, you also get a free regeneration effect as a reward. If you're ever building a frog farm or a mixed aquarium, be careful because axolotls absolutely hate tadpoles. If they're anywhere near each other, the axolotl will actively hunt down and kill the tadpole. So if you want both in one space, you'll have to physically separate them with glass or other blocks. Undead mobs in Minecraft work exactly opposite to living mobs with healing and damage potions. Throw a potion of healing at a zombie and it actually takes damage. Throw a potion of harming though and the zombie gets healed instead. The full list of mobs that are considered undead is on screen now so that you know which mobs this applies to. Most players have heard the term tick thrown around in Minecraft, but few realize there are actually two different kinds. A regular game tick is 1/20th of a second or 0.05 seconds. This is what the game uses to update mob movement, block updates, and everything happening in the world. A redstone tick, however, is twice as long, 1/10 of a second or 0.1 seconds. That's why redstone repeaters delay signals in increments of 0.1 seconds. If you have a tamed cat and you sleep in a bed right next to it, there's a chance it'll bring you a gift in the morning. You have to sleep at night, not during a thunderstorm, but if you do it right, the gifts can be string, feathers, rabbit hide, raw chicken, a rabbit's foot, rotten flesh, or even a phantom membrane. The phantom membrane is the rarest drop, and it's usually the most valuable too, since it's used to repair elytra and brew slow falling potions. The village bell isn't just for decoration, it actually has a useful combat function as well. In Java, ringing a bell causes all nearby illagers and witches to glow with a visible outline, even through walls. During raids, this is huge because enemies scatter all over the village, and the outline immediately shows you exactly where every threat is. What's interesting though is that this works on illagers inside woodland mansions, not just raids. The trader llamas that spawn with wandering traders are secretly loyal little bodyguards. If any mob attacks the wandering trader, the trader llamas start spitting at the attacker to defend their owner. What's funny though is that the llama spit doesn't always hit its target, as sometimes it misses and lands on another trader llama, which gets angry, and you end up watching the trader's own bodyguards beef with each other mid-fight. Curing a zombie villager has always been a great way to get permanent trade discounts from villagers, but the system used to be way more OP than it is now. In older versions, you could repeatedly cure the same villager to stack the discount, eventually dropping every trade to 1 emerald, which was obviously insanely broken. Modern Java patched this out, as now the discount maxes out after 1 cure, but Bedrock Edition still works the old way for some reason, so infinite stacking is still possible there. For a long time, Bedrock had a quirk where 2 music discs, Melohi and Wait, could spawn in buried treasure chests, even though that's not how Java worked. This was actually unintentional, as those discs were only supposed to spawn in dungeon chests. Mojang corrected this in version 1.21.13, but if you've got an older Bedrock world, you might still have those discs sitting in a pre-patched treasure chest. Zoglins have a really aggressive AI and attack basically anything they can find. What's strange though is that Zoglins will actively target and attack armor stands. The thing is, they can't actually break the armor stands, so they'll just stand there infinitely swinging at a decoration, which makes it a free way to keep them in place, although the only way to find a Zoglin in the first place is to purposely bring a Hoglin to the overworld, so I'm not sure how useful this would be. Fall damage is one of the most common ways to die in Minecraft, but there are a few blocks that almost completely cancel it. Hay bales and honey blocks both reduce fall damage by a massive 80%, meaning you only take 20% of the damage you'd normally take. With a hay bale at the bottom, you can survive falls of over 100 blocks at full health, and if you add Feather Falling 4 to the mix, you can survive just shy of a 200 block fall. Most players light TNT by hand with a flint and steel, or even by activating it with a redstone signal. A unique way to light it though is by instead putting your flint and steel into a dispenser, which will cause it to light the TNT instead of just dropping the flint and steel. The flint and steel will still take durability damage with each use though, which makes this mostly useless since you need redstone anyway and could just hook it up to the TNT directly. Glowberries are actually a bit more useful than most players realize. Not only can they be eaten as food, but they provide light when planted, and the cave vines they grow on extend downward as they grow. That last detail is where the magic happens, as you can plant glowberries at the top of a deep shaft and the glowing vines will trail all the way down. You end up with a natural glowing ladder that lights its own path, perfect for cave bases or mineshaft entries. Sea pickles are an easy renewable underwater light source that most players completely overlook. They glow when placed placed underwater, and the more you cluster together, the brighter they get, up to 4 per block space. What many don't know though is that you can bone meal a single sea pickle while it's underwater on a living coral block, and it'll multiply into a bigger cluster automatically. Everyone knows you can make a honey block with 4 bottles of honey, but did you know that you can craft them back into honey bottles? The recipe is a 2x2 arrangement of bottles in the crafting grid with a honey block to the side, which refills the 4 bottles with honey and uses up the honey block. This is useful if you've ever overcrafted honey blocks and want to reclaim the bottles for something else like crafting sugar or as an antidote to the poison effect. Sweet berry bushes are an underrated natural hazard. Walking through a fully grown bush slows you to a crawl and damages you, which can be effective for traps. But what's interesting is that foxes are completely immune, so they can stroll right through sweet berry bushes without taking damage or losing any speed at all. It makes sense as foxes seek out and eat these berries, and they're even used to breed them. You probably know that sugarcane naturally stops growing once it hits 3 blocks tall. But when sugarcane generates naturally in a freshly loaded chunk, there's a 1 in 9 chance for it to spawn as 4 blocks tall instead. This is the only way to find sugarcane that tall without manually stacking it yourself, as doing that lets you make it as tall as you want. If you've ever looked at Minecraft's armor enchantments, you've probably noticed that boots, leggings, and helmets all have exclusive enchantments. Helmets get Aqua Affinity and Respiration, boots get Depth Strider, Feather Falling, and Soul Speed, and leggings have Swift Sneak. That being said, the chestplate is the only armor piece that still doesn't have any unique enchantments, which I guess is good since a lot of players always swap it out for an elytra anyway. Nether brick is actually the only block material in Minecraft that has both a fence variant and a wall variant. Normally fences are wood based and walls are stone based. Those are 2 distinct categories, and most materials are locked to one or the other. Nether brick is the one exception bridging both worlds, giving you both the nether brick fence and the nether brick wall, which adds a lot of options for building with this material. Sniffers are one of the most interesting but also obscure mobs that have been added recently. But here's a detail almost no one knows: baby sniffers have their own official name. A baby sniffer is called a snifflet. This is one of the only babies that has its own special name in all of Minecraft, and it's likely due to the potential weird connotation that the default name would have had. Deep Slate, the dark gray block that makes up the lower portion of the world's caves, was almost released under a completely different name. During the development of the Caves and Cliffs update, Mojang originally called it Grimstone internally and in early reveals. They renamed it to Deep Slate before launch, but you can still find old development screenshots and articles where it's referred to as Grimstone, and the name change was controversial. Comment down below if you think they should have stuck with Grimstone. Rabbits in modern Minecraft are pretty small mobs that just hop around aimlessly, but when they were first added, they were way bigger than they are today. Mojang shrunk them down in the very next update to match other small passive mobs, but this shrinking actually completely broke their pathfinding. This pathfinding bug was in the game all the way up until version 1.21.4, where it was finally fixed. Lecterns are such a basic part of villages that it's hard to imagine them not being in the game, but Mojang actually planned them way back in 2012, originally for the Pretty Scary update along with Witches in the Wither. For various technical reasons though, lecterns kept getting pushed back, as Dinnerbone kept thinking they didn't look right. This kept going back and forth until they were finally released in the Village and Pillage update 6 years later in 2018. The Jungle Ocelot was actually the very first cat added to the game, way before the modern cat mob existed. Back then, you could tame ocelots with raw fish and they transform into a tamed cat, but when Mojang split the 2 mobs apart in 1.14, ocelots permanently lost the ability to be tamed. What's also strange is that ocelots cannot spawn in peaceful mode in Java, but it looks like that'll finally be fixed in the upcoming Chaos Cubed update. Beetroot is a pretty boring crop in modern Minecraft, but it actually has one of the strangest histories of any food item in the game. For years, beetroot was exclusive to Pocket Edition and the Raspberry Pi version of Minecraft. It didn't exist anywhere else, but then it got removed entirely. Then years later, it was re-released, this time in all versions. Do you ever feel like your wolf survives way more damage than it seems like it should? Well, you're not crazy, as wolves in the wild only have 4 hearts, but once tamed, they instantly gain 6 more for a total of 10 hearts like the player. This can then be improved further by adding wolf armor, which lets the wolf effectively take 32 hearts of damage before dying. Way back in version 1.2.1, Mojang added 2 chiseled sandstone textures to the game files. These textures still exist in the current game's code, but they have never once been used in an actual sandstone block, so most players have never seen them. They're just sitting in the texture files completely unused after more than a decade. I wish Mojang would make an update where they just give uses to all these unused mobs and textures in the game's files. The chiseled red sandstone block also has a hidden detail in its texture that most players never noticed. If you look closely at any side, you can see a clear depiction of the Wither boss carved into the surface. What makes it even better is that this design was actually submitted by a Reddit user whose name is on screen now, which was then picked up by Mojang and credited. Did you know the Ender Dragon actually has a name? Pause the video and comment down below what you think it is, as I'll tell you in a few seconds. The name Notch gave to the dragon was Jean, which was supposed to be a counterpart to Steve, but I guess now we know the dragon is definitely a girl. Enchanted golden apples are one of the most valuable items in the game, and most players associate them with ancient city loot. Ancient city chests can't have them, with about an 8.4% chance per chest, which used to be the highest chance in the game. But with the addition of ominous vaults inside trial chambers, those give them at a massive 22.5% rate, almost 3 times higher. So if you actually want to farm enchanted wanted golden apples, trial chambers are probably the way to go. Ocean monuments can actually generate retroactively in existing worlds, even in chunks you've already loaded. The catch is that you have to have spent less than 3 minutes in that specific chunk for it to count as eligible. So if you briefly sailed through an ocean area in your world before 1.8, a monument might spawn there the next time you load that chunk, which can end up causing some super strange world gen situations. There's literally no such thing as empty space in Minecraft. Every empty inventory slot and every open block position is actually filled with a specific block called air. You can prove it with commands, as /give air works as intended and even returns a confirmation in the chat like any other item, but because it's not a holdable item, it looks like nothing happened. But using the /fill command with air does actually clear out any blocks by replacing them with air. What's even weirder is that there are different types of air: regular air, cave air, and void air, all of which exist as completely distinct block IDs, although nobody really knows why Mojang made them different since they operate the exact same way. Buried deep in Minecraft Java's code, there's an actual function literally called "you just lost the game." The function does exactly what it sounds like, it intentionally crashes the game. You can trigger it yourself by holding Ctrl, F3, and C at the same time, at which point the game will start counting down to warn you that it'll crash if you keep holding these keys down. Mojang named it after the internet meme "The Game," which you just lost by the way. Back in 2010, Minecraft was nominated for Indie Game of the Year for the IndieDB Community Awards. Notch publicly promised that if Minecraft won, he'd add cake to the game. Well, Minecraft did win, and just a few months later in January 2011, Beta 1.2 launched with cake officially added as a direct result. Mojang has confirmed this piece of history themselves, so every cake you've ever crafted traces back to a community promise that the developers actually kept. There are tons of status effects in Minecraft that don't usually come in potion form, like Dolphin's Grace, Conduit Power, Breath of the Nautilus, Wither, and more. But there's one massive command you can use that generates a chest filled with custom potions for every single one of those normally impossible effects all at once. The full command is in the video description for you to try out, but fair warning, since it's way too long to type into chat like a normal command, make sure you just paste it into a command block and then activate it with a button to get your chest full of crazy potions. Skulk sensors detect every vibration around them and emit a redstone signal, but there's one block that completely shuts them down: wool. Vibrations literally cannot pass through wool. Place a wool block between a skulk sensor and any noise source and the sensor won't pick it up at all. This lets you soundproof areas in the deep dark to avoid waking the warden, and build directional sensors as well that only trigger from certain sides for advanced redstone. The world creation menu in Java has 4 standard world types: default, super flat, large biomes, and amplified. But there's a hidden 5th type that most players have never heard of. If you hold Alt while clicking through the world type options, a special type called debug mode will appear. Creating a world with this type shows every single block state in the entire game laid out in a giant flat grid, including every redstone orientation with every signal strength, blocks facing every possible direction, and all the waterlogged versus dry variants. This is mainly used by developers, but it's a fun and super satisfying way to see just how many blocks and states Minecraft actually has. When you kill a slime, the small ones it splits into stay small forever, but with sulfur cubes, the small ones actually grow back to full size after 20 minutes. That means you can duplicate them indefinitely, split a big one, wait 20 minutes, and get 2 more, then rinse and repeat. To speed up the process, you can even feed the babies slime balls to make them grow up quicker, and if you want to keep them small forever, feed them a golden dandelion just like any other baby. Foxes can carry almost any item in the game in their mouths, and most of them are completely functional. If you give a fox a totem of undying, for example, and it takes fatal damage, it'll consume the totem and revive itself exactly like a player would. The fox will also receive the normal post-revival effects, including regeneration 2, fire resistance, and absorption. So if you want to protect your pet fox, this would be the way to do it. We all know that creepers are afraid of cats, as they'll keep at least 6 blocks of distance from any cat, even while actively chasing you. But did you know that phantoms hate cats even more? That's right, as phantoms will actually stay a full 16 blocks away from any cats. So putting a few cats around your base is basically free defense against the 2 most annoying mobs in the entire game. During the 1.14 Village and Pillage snapshots, Mojang briefly added one of the funniest mob interactions ever: Ravagers were scared of rabbits. Snapshot testers found that Ravagers would actually run away and refuse to engage if a bunny was nearby. However, developer Jeb later confirmed on Twitter that this fear was actually unintended because it didn't fit the lore of the big, intimidating beast. So the developers removed the behavior before the Ravager was officially released in the 1.14 Village and Pillage update. Fishing in Minecraft usually pulls up some salmon or maybe an enchanted book here and there, but every now and then you'll actually reel in a pair of leather boots. This is a deliberate Easter egg by Mojang, as it's basically Minecraft's version of the classic cartoon trope where a fisherman hooks an old boot from the bottom of a river. They come up in the junk loot category along bowls, sticks, and string, and they're usually damaged, but free leather boots are free leather leather boots, especially since you can use them to walk on powdered snow without falling through. Most players know about the Dinnerbone name tag that flips a mob upside down, but there's a second name that works the same way, Grum. Grum and Dinnerbone are both Mojang developers, and naming any mob either name with a name tag flips it completely upside down. What makes Grum special though is that his actual Minecraft player model is completely upside down, which is super unique since no other player has that trait. Pretty much every baby mob in Minecraft uses a sped up version of the parent sound. But polar bears are one of the only exceptions, as the cub has its own completely unique vocalization that isn't just a sped up adult sound. So if you spawn an adult polar bear and cub side by side, you can actually hear they're using totally different sounds. Frog lights are some of the brightest decorative blocks in the entire game, and the way you get them is honestly a lot more difficult than most other blocks in the game. When a frog eats a small magma cube, it produces a frog light corresponding with the color of the frog. The color depends on the frog's variant. Warm frogs make pearlescent, cold frogs make verdant, and temperate frogs make ochre. There originally was supposed to be a blue frog variant as well that was unfortunately scrapped before release, which cheated us out of what could have been a beautiful blue frog light, which likely would have been called cerulean. Allays are one of the most useful mobs for collecting items, and you can actually duplicate them in a super easy but strange way. Place a jukebox, pop in any music disc, and a nearby allay will start dancing. While it's dancing near the jukebox, hand it an amethyst shard and it'll split into 2 allays instantly. The amethyst gets consumed this way, and there's a 5-minute cooldown before they can duplicate again, but this is honestly one of the best uses for amethysts. Most players know about regular ice, packed ice, and blue ice, but there's a 4th type that almost no one's ever heard of, frosted ice. Frosted ice is the temporary block that forms under your feet when you walk over water with frostwalker boots. It has a unique cracked texture and slowly melts. You can't collect the block even with Silk Touch, as that would be an infinite ice glitch, but in Bedrock Edition only, you can actually get it by using the /give command. C418, the original composer behind nearly every iconic Minecraft track, actually has his own Mojang-made player skin. His skin is the classic Minecraft Steve skin, but with a jukebox for a head. It's a beautiful tribute to the man who basically defined the nostalgic sound of Minecraft for an entire generation. Mushrooms were the very first food ever added to Minecraft. Brown mushrooms healed you for 2.5 hearts, basically working like an early version of bread, while red mushrooms damaged you for 1.5 hearts because they were classified as poisonous. Mojang eventually switched mushrooms over to be crafting ingredients only, so you can't actually eat them anymore in modern versions. Most players who play Minecraft today won't remember this, but the hunger bar didn't used to exist. When you ate food, it would just heal your hearts instantly, the same way instant health potions work today, except the food didn't actually take any time to eat or drink. Hunger was added in beta 1.8 in September of 2011 as part of the adventure update, and it completely changed how Minecraft survival worked. Food went from being a direct source of healing to being a more nuanced item set that helped you not only survive, but be able to sprint and regenerate depending on how full your bar was. Sprinting also didn't exist in Minecraft for a long time. The double tap forward to sprint mechanic came in the exact same beta 1.8 update that added hunger, and the two systems were designed to work together since sprinting drains your hunger faster. Before that, you just walked everywhere at the exact same speed, and looking back now, I don't know how we put up with this ultra slow walking all the time. The 1.9 combat update is probably the most controversial change in Minecraft's history. Before 1.9, you could spam click your sword and every single hit dealt full damage. And while Bedrock combat still works this way to this day for some reason, for Java, 1.9 added the attack cooldown bar, which forces you to wait between swings for full damage. It also added sweep attacks, shields, and dual wielding, most of which were also never added to Bedrock, and PvP players have been arguing about it ever since. Before shields were a thing, you could actually block damage with your sword. If you right-clicked while holding any sword, you'd hold it up defensively and reduce incoming damage by 50%. In fact, you could quickly alternate between left and right clicking to block hit, which would allow you to block most incoming hits in PvP while still dealing damage to others at the same time. Players also used to block with their sword while crouching to signal that they wanted to team up or be friendly rather than fight on a multiplayer server, and it was sad when this was removed. When the 1.9 combat update added proper shields as a separate item, the sword blocking mechanic was removed entirely, so now swords are purely offensive. Enchanting tables didn't always require lapis lazuli to use. When enchanting was first added in version 1.0, the only cost was your experience levels. You'd pick an enchantment, pay XP, and that was it. Lapis lazuli's only use at the time was to dye things blue. In version 1.8, Mojang added lapis as a required cost for enchanting, partly to give it a real gameplay purpose and partly to make enchanting feel more expensive overall. Copper was a pretty underwhelming addition to Minecraft, as when it first came out, there really weren't a whole lot of uses for it. That's actually changed though, as in recent years, Mojang has added a ton more useful features involving copper. So players need it more than ever before, but it's annoying to have yet another ore you have to dig for when mining on top of gold and iron. Luckily, there's an easy way to get more copper blocks than you'll ever need, as by simply buying a trial explorer map from a cartographer villager, you can find a trial chamber. These trial chambers have cool loot like materials for crafting a mace and wind charges, but they're also made of mostly copper, which can be easily mined and taken away for you to use on anything you want. And on top of that, all the copper is waxed already to prevent it from changing to different oxidation states, so if you need it for builds, you can keep the wax on for for those different stages, or remove the wax by using an axe. When you hear the word treehouse in Minecraft, most people think of a house up in a tall tree, but there's actually a different kind of treehouse that can be a lot more useful. Not everyone likes to go all out and build a really nice house, and a lot of players just want a simple option that keeps mobs out and gives them a place to store their items. Well, look no further, as you can simply arrange saplings into a square like this, then use bone meal on them, and they'll grow to form a solid house with a unique look to it. Then you can choose to leave it messy and natural looking like this, or trim up the leaves to make it a bit more aesthetic. But either way, it's a super quick and functional house option that'll be sure to impress your friends. When mining for ancient debris in the nether, a lot of people will tell you to use beds to quickly blast through large sections of netherrack and find more ancient debris than you would by mining with your pickaxe. But most people do this wrong, as they simply place beds a few blocks out of reach and then blow them up, but then for the next bed you have to bridge over and avoid lava and fire. Instead, simply sprint while mining to quickly mine out a 2-block tall hallway as far as you can, and then place TNT every 4 blocks and light one to quickly mine out the whole area. If you don't have any TNT and still want to use beds, this still works as well, since you can work backwards through your hallway by simply placing a block near your feet before clicking on the bed to prevent the explosion from doing much damage to you. Ever since the MLG water bucket trick became so popular due to speedrunners using it all the time, a lot of players like to try it themselves to impress their friends, but they usually just end up dying and making a fool of themselves. So instead, simply place that water at the top and wait for it to flow down, which only takes a couple of seconds. Then grab the water back with your bucket and jump into the waterfall. This will get you down quickly and safely without leaving your water behind, and without the risk of dying and embarrassing yourself. When you have a lot of furnaces in one spot, it can be hard to remember which ones still have items in them. But if you simply crouch and place levers on the front, you can leave them in their upright position for ones that still have items smelting, and down for the ones that are empty. This simple trick can save you a lot of time, since you won't need to go into each individual furnace to check. Simply keep the levers up and put them down once you take your items out. When building a long railway, many players know that you should place a powered rail about every 37 blocks for flat tracks, as this is just enough to keep you going without wasting extra powered rails. But what many don't realize is that you can simply make stacks of 37 rails in your inventory so that you can mindlessly place them, and then when you run out, you know to place a powered rail there and move on to the next stack. Or if you really want to save time and mental energy, you can simply split your full stacks into half stacks, which will keep your cart from slowing down too much while not burning through too much gold. Whenever you build a mob farm in the overworld, it can be annoying that so many zombies spawn and just drop rotten flesh, since it's pretty much useless, especially compared to all the bones, string, arrows, and gunpowder you get from the other mobs. So try building your next mob farm in a desert biome, since 80% of the zombies that spawn there will spawn as the husk variant, but husks can only spawn if there aren't any blocks above their head. Since most mob farms have a roof over the spawning area, this will prevent 80% of the zombie spawns and leave way more room for those other more useful mobs instead. Enchanting is something most players think is completely random, and technically you'd be right, but what if I told you there's a clever trick that can guarantee you a specific enchantment on your tools 100% of the time, so you don't have to keep guessing or relying on those vague tips the enchantment table gives you? Well, first off, the way Minecraft calculates which enchantments are available to you is random. You're not crazy to think that. But the first level 30 enchantment on each world for each tool, weapon, or armor type is actually the same every single time, regardless of the world seed. This does work for any enchantable item, but the most useful 3 are the pickaxe, sword, and trident. This is because the first sword you enchant on any world will always give you looting 3 and unbreaking 3, which is a super useful enchantment for you to get more food, more ender pearls, more blaze rods, and so much more. But it doesn't stop there, as your pickaxe will always get efficiency 4 and unbreaking 3, which is incredibly useful for quick mining and saving durability. And then for the trident, it gets even better, as you'll always get both channeling and loyalty 3 on your first trident, which is pretty much the perfect trident since it'll always come back when you throw it, and you can easily summon charged creepers, witches, brown mushrooms, or do anything else you need lightning for. The trick to getting this to work is that the item must be your first enchant of the entire Minecraft world, since once you enchant something else, that's when random chance takes over for the rest of your enchantments after that. And the only other quirk is that you cannot log out and log back into your world, as this enchantment must be done on your first session upon creating and joining the world. But as long as you follow those rules, you can get looting, efficiency, and channeling every single time guaranteed, so make sure you utilize this the next time you're starting a world. When looting shipwrecks or exploring ocean monuments, most players think you need to get a water breathing potion or at least a respiration helmet so that you can stay underwater much longer and get the loot that you need. But enchanting and brewing aren't exactly available to the player until much later on in many cases, so a much cheaper and simpler solution is to simply craft a door. Doors are accessible from the very first moment you load into your world, and you can simply place a door in any underwater area to instantly create an air bubble that you can perfectly stand in and regain air without having to swim up to the surface or anything like that. This is especially useful since shipwreck loot is usually not even that useful after the early game, so doors allow you to easily collect this loot while it's still useful, and you can even use it to loot an ocean monument for some early game gold or sponges. Fortune is one of the most powerful enchantments in Minecraft, since it can literally quadruple the amount of yield when you mine diamonds or other ores, but many players don't realize this actually works on crops as well. You can simply use your pickaxe with fortune on sunlight to harvest fully grown crops, and it'll have the same effect as it does with ores, with carrots and potatoes giving you an insane amount of yield for only a few fully grown crops. And the best part is that this doesn't even use up any of the pickaxe durability, and since pickaxes aren't fast for mining dirt, you won't risk messing up your farm like you would if you did this with a shovel. Crossbows in Java have a hidden quality of life feature where if you hold down the use button after firing, the crossbow will instantly start reloading itself again. This is super nice so that you don't have to double click to fire an arrow and start the next reload. In fact, in Bedrock Edition, not only does the reload animation not restart automatically if you hold the use button, but there is a small delay before you can even click again to reload. Most players won't even notice this since the delay is so small, but if you double click too fast, it actually won't work at all and you'll have to click yet again to even reload your crossbow. Hardcore mode, where you die once and lose the world forever, was a Java exclusive feature for over a decade. Bedrock players had to make do with custom hardcore challenges where you'd manually delete the world if you died, which made hardcore worlds even easier to fake and honestly just made the whole concept feel corny and not worthwhile in Bedrock Edition. Bedrock only officially got native hardcore mode in version 1.21.40, which was released in 2024, nearly 13 years after Java Edition got the feature. In any modern version of Minecraft, you can put yourself in spectator mode by using commands or keyboard shortcuts, and this allows you to freely fly around the world with no HUD, items, or any other distractions, even allowing you to phase right through blocks. In Java Edition, you can click on mobs to spectate them and see from their point of view, with a few mobs like creepers and endermen having special filters on their vision that are fun to mess around with. In Bedrock though, the mob spectating feature is completely missing, so clicking on mobs doesn't do anything and you're never able to see those cool mob vision Easter eggs. Bedrock has a full character creator built into the main menu where you can stack 3D skin parts on top of each other and customize your character in so many different ways. Mojang and creators release new pieces over time and you can mix and match thousands of combinations. Java Edition does skins completely differently, with the player needing to update their skin in the launcher or on the Minecraft website, and this is done via uploading a skin file which can be made in MS Paint or otherwise downloaded from various Minecraft skin sharing websites. In any version of the game, magma cubes technically emit a light level of 3, which isn't really that noticeable on its own. What is noticeable though is that magma cubes in Java don't actually appear to have a glow to them, whereas in Bedrock Edition you can see that the eyes and fire particles emit a strong glow effect, although this doesn't actually light up blocks any more than it does in Java. If you pause in Bedrock Edition and click on how to play, you'll see a series of visual and text guides that show you exactly how to do common tasks like crafting and placing blocks. In Java Edition, there is no such menu at all, and the player needs to rely on the advancements that exist in-game or external sources like the Minecraft wiki or other online communities. This is most likely due to Bedrock typically having a younger player base that is more likely to be new to the game and need help figuring things out. Bedrock Edition has native support for touch controls, external controllers, keyboard and mouse, and more. But since Java Edition is only available on PC, keyboard and mouse is the default and only method of playing the game. If you want to use a controller or something similar to play Java on your PC, you'll have to download a mod or plugin that will allow you to do so. Bridging is a classic Minecraft mechanic that almost every player has used at least once, especially if you play minigames like Bed Wars on public servers. But while bridging seems simple, in Java Edition it requires extremely precise timing and block placement to do it quickly, since you need to be crouching or jumping over the edge of the block you're standing on before you can place the next block. In Bedrock Edition, you can just hold down the place block button while facing in the direction you want to bridge, and it'll let you keep placing blocks, which makes speed bridging so easy a literal baby could do it. If you ever end up with an enderman in a boat where it can't teleport, you'll notice they behave totally differently depending on which version you play on. In Java, arrows literally bounce off the enderman like it's deflecting them, and they won't do any damage at all. In Bedrock though, you can actually shoot endermen with a bow and arrow as long as they're in a boat, and it will work just like any other mob. Bedrock has a unique mechanic called snow logging, where you can place snow layers right on top of grass, flowers, or other small plants. The plant just pokes up through the snow, making for some really pretty and more realistic looking winter scenes. Java doesn't allow this at all, and if you try to place snow on top of a flower, it'll simply be placed on the block next to it instead. Fences are an absolutely crucial item to have if you're trying to keep mobs contained, breed them, or really anything else having to do with mobs. But a nice trick to know is that you can actually leave these diagonal fence gaps, as even though the player can fit through, passive mobs like cows, pigs, and sheep cannot. This can give you a lot more flexibility when designing different fence layouts, but one thing to note is that the baby mobs have a smaller hitbox and can still fit through. Because of that though, this fence trick can be a super easy way to separate baby and adult mobs, which can be useful if the mobs are being used as a source of food, since you want to keep the babies around to grow into adults before being harvested. Looting is one of the most useful enchantments in all of Minecraft, since it massively cuts down the time on any mob related grind. This works great for everything from gathering food from passive mobs all the way to increasing the chances for rare drops like wither skeleton skulls. But what's really annoying is that there's some mobs that either fly or are very dangerous to get close to, but they still have useful drops you'd like to get more of without so much hassle. So what if you could put looting 3 on your bow instead of just on your sword? Well, there's actually a super clever way we can do this in completely vanilla survival, as you simply need to be holding a looting sword in your main hand when you kill a mob for it to take effect. As a result, you can simply hold hold a looting sword of any rarity in your main hand and put your bow in your offhand, and then any mobs you shoot will drop way more loot. This is super useful for getting more loot from mobs like wither skeletons, creepers, blazes, or ghast, as all of those are either dangerous to approach or just hard to hit since they can fly. The best part of this though is that it can be easily done in the early game, since ruined portals often have gold swords with looting on them, and since this trick doesn't use up the sword's durability at all, you can easily make it last forever as long as you keep making new bows when they break. Sadly, this trick does not work at all in Bedrock Edition, since bows can't be placed in your offhand there. Another Java exclusive feature is using doors underwater to create air bubbles to breathe in, but there's actually a different way you can do this that's both funny and useful, which is to place a bed instead. Beds can be placed at the bottom of an ocean or river, and they actually won't get broken, even though it seems like they should. Not only can they then be slept in, but since beds aren't subject to waterlogging in Java, this will also create an air bubble and allow you to catch your breath while exploring underwater. The only downside to this is that it can only be done at night or during thunderstorms, since the game won't allow you to enter a bed outside of those times. But other than that, if you're okay with temporarily changing your spawn point, this can be a useful strategy for early game water exploration, especially if you find a village early and can steal the beds from there. One of the most common things Minecraft players tell everyone not to do is dig straight down, since it's a mistake that newer players often make and then get understandably frustrated when they fall into a deep cave or lava pool and lose all of their items. But with a simple tweak, mining straight down can go from one of the worst ideas possible to one of the most effective ways for finding caves. The change you make is that instead of mining a 1 block wide hole, just mine it 2 blocks wide and stand in the middle. That way you can always see the next block before falling down and won't ever accidentally fall somewhere dangerous again. And the best part is that you won't be missing out on such a great way to find caves a lot quicker than making a proper staircase. Even though Minecraft has plenty of fictional elements to it, the developers like to make a lot of features as accurate to real life as possible. One example of this is that in real life, growing too many of the same crop right on top of each other all the time can make them take longer to grow, be more vulnerable to pests, and make the soil less viable for future harvests. And the same is actually true in Minecraft, as while there aren't any bugs or soil nutrients in the game, planting a whole bunch of one crop will actually make them grow slower. So the best way is actually to alternate rows of different crops, such as potatoes and carrots, which will make everything grow twice as fast. A common strategy for finding end cities after beating the dragon is to turn your render distance up to the max so that you can see them from super far away and not have to wander around aimlessly. But depending on the device you're using, this isn't always possible, as it can cause a ton of lag or just straight up crash your game if you don't have a powerful PC or console that can handle it. Luckily, there's actually a potion we can use to help with this, and that's the night vision potion. If you drink a night vision potion, the effect will actually show you silhouettes of end cities that are outside of your render distance. And since you only need to see this for a couple of seconds to get your bearings, you can actually make suspicious stew with a poppy or torch flower to get the effect for a few seconds, see which way you need to go, and then just keep walking in that direction when it wears off. Speaking of potions, witches are a great way to get some common potion ingredients like gunpowder, glowstone dust, redstone, and even bottles. But what if instead of getting the ingredients, we could just get the useful potions directly from the witches themselves? Well, we actually can, as witches actually have a chance to drop whichever potion they're currently using if killed while drinking it. So we can manipulate a witch into using a specific potion in a few different ways. The most common potion dropped by witches is the potion of instant health, and that's because it'll try to drink one whenever it has lost a good chunk of its health, which is obviously any time one gets killed. But for something like a water breathing potion, we can force the witch to drink one by simply submerging its head in water, which can be done by trapping it and using water buckets, or by pushing it into a body of water. It's important to time your kill though, since there's only about a 1.6 second window where the witch will be drinking the potion. We can actually use a similar trick to get fire resistance potions, as witches will drink these whenever they're on fire, so simply light one with a flint and steel and you shouldn't have any trouble getting it. And then the last one we can get would be the potion of swiftness, which the witch will use when it is 11 blocks or more away from the player, meaning we'll need to use a bow for this one since the witch will be out of range when drinking. The looting enchantment can be used to increase the chance for one of these potions to drop, so if we combine this with the bow trick from earlier, we can actually have a solid chance at getting this potion by simply shooting at the witch when it's a good distance away from us. It actually doesn't stop there though, as wandering traders have the same mechanic, and they'll always drink an invisibility potion when the sun goes down, so if you have your sights on one at sunset, you can time your kill and get an invisibility potion super easily. Frostwalker is a fun enchantment to use, and it's super satisfying to run across oceans and turn them to ice, and you can even use the enchantment to troll your friends when they try to jump down into a pool of water to avoid fall damage. But another interesting use for this enchantment is that it'll completely prevent any damage you would normally take from walking on magma blocks. Without the enchant, you just have to crouch all the time when traveling in the nether to avoid getting hurt by these blocks, but the enchant allows you to walk and even sprint with no consequences. This can also come in super clutch when you're building a gold farm on the nether roof, since they often use a ton of magma blocks and having to crouch can make building the farms take a lot longer. Many players know that not only can you combine tools of the same type in an anvil to repair them, but you can also do this in your inventory or crafting table as well, with the anvil simply preserving enchantments where the crafting menu does not. This is mostly true, but the game actually gives you a small bonus equivalent to 5% of the max durability for that tool when combining, so this can be useful for saving resources on tools by combining a few before they break. break. And even better is that when you use an anvil for this, the game gives you a whopping 12% boost to the durability of your tool, which is the trade-off for the anvil using XP where the crafting menu doesn't. There are times in Minecraft where Mojang leaves clues on how to do things in the game so that players don't have to just rely on the wiki. The best example of this is probably ruined portals, since if a new player saw one, they would likely wonder what it was and eventually figure out how to make a nether portal. But another example of this is igloos, since roughly 50% of igloos actually have a basement with a villager and zombie villager in them. This basement is designed to teach players how to cure a zombie villager with the provided golden apple and potion of weakness. But have you ever noticed that the zombie villager in these basements always seems to cure faster than normal? Well, you're not crazy, as the iron bars that naturally generate there actually speed up the villager curing time by a decent amount. We can use this quirk to our advantage by placing up to 14 beds or iron bars within a 9x9 cube of the villager being cured, and this will cause the curing process to happen a fair bit faster than normal. So next time you're zombifying and curing a bunch of villagers for lower prices, make sure to use this tip and save yourself some time. Piglin brutes are so scary, as their axes do an insane amount of damage and you'll die very fast if you don't have good armor and food. Bedrock players may be annoyed to discover that these brutes will still spawn in your bastion remnants even in peaceful mode, whereas in Java they will despawn once you enter peaceful mode. Don't worry though, as in Bedrock those peaceful mode brutes will be completely passive and they won't hurt you even if you forgot to put on gold armor. Armorer villagers are super useful for getting fully enchanted gear for the endgame, as they will sell you all 4 pieces of diamond armor once they're fully leveled up to master. They aren't quite as useful in Bedrock though, as they only ever offer 2 of those armor types at the same time, so it's way harder to gear up since you have to have multiple armorers, and even then you have to get lucky for them to sell the right pieces. If you've ever set up a villager trading hall on Bedrock Edition, you may have noticed that your villagers won't restock, and that's because Bedrock villagers need access to a bed to restock their trades. Even if their workstation is right there, no bed means no restock. Java villagers will restock just by visiting their workstations, as beds are only necessary for breeding, which makes Java trading halls way more compact and cheap to set up. If you're in creative mode and just want to get back to the spawn point or otherwise die, it's easy to just use the /kill command. But this is actually only true in Java Edition, since in Bedrock, players are completely immortal in creative mode. This means that even the /kill command, the void, or other foolproof death methods will simply not work on a creative mode player in this version. Saving a village from a raid in Java gives you the hero of the village effect, and not only do you get discounted trades, but villagers will literally throw free items at you when you walk past them. They'll throw out things like food, armor, and other random gifts as a thank you. On Bedrock, you just get the trade discount, no item throwing celebration, which honestly makes saving the village feel way less rewarding. Maybe I'll just let the pillagers have at it next time. Pufferfish are known to inflate themselves to look much bigger when they feel threatened, but this behavior is actually very different depending on the game version you're playing. In Bedrock Edition, the pufferfish will inflate when you get close, but it will inflate to its fullest form instantly if you damage it. In Java Edition, damaging the pufferfish doesn't have any effect on it blowing up, so as long as you don't get too close, you'll never have to worry about getting poisoned. We all know that mobs and players will briefly turn red when they take damage, but you can only see this on yourself by going into third-person mode, or at least that's how it works in Java Edition, as even though you can see your hand when you're holding an item, it doesn't turn red when you take damage. In Bedrock Edition, on the other hand, your hand will flash red when you take damage, so no matter what view you're in, you can see the red flashing animation on yourself. Strongholds in Java spawn in 3 predictable rings around the world spawn at 0, so you can plug any seed into a tool and find them instantly. Bedrock strongholds are completely random across the world though, sometimes even thousands of blocks from spawn. This is why Java speedrunners can use a few Eyes of Ender to easily triangulate the stronghold's position and find it so quickly. There's a map feature that Bedrock players are always asking for, and that's banner markers. On Java, you can name a banner, place it in the world, and then use a map on that banner to add a colored marker or waypoint with the banner's name right onto the map. Bedrock maps don't support banner markers for some reason, so there really isn't any way to mark a specific location on your map. Bedrock's main menu has a dedicated servers tab with a bunch of big featured servers pre-listed, like the Hive, CubeCraft, Lifeboat, and others. You can literally just log into Minecraft, click on a server, and join, no IP needed. Java requires you to manually find, copy, and paste server IPs into the multiplayer menu, which is more flexible but also a higher barrier to entry for new players. This is another one of those features that is meant to simplify the game for younger players that play the game on tablets or smartphones, as hunting down IPs is a bit more involved. Pillagers are so mean, as they attack villagers and the player anytime you come into contact with one, but if you want to make them completely passive and keep one as a pet, simply let it shoot you over and over until its crossbow breaks. This will take roughly 250 shots, so make sure you have enough armor and food to tank all those hits, but once the crossbow breaks, the pillager will have no way to hurt you, and instead it will become completely passive. Then you can give it a name and keep it as a pet without the risk of it hurting you. Unfortunately, pillagers in Bedrock Edition are built different, and their crossbows will never break no matter how many times they shoot. Pillagers are villains, not monsters, as they will never hurt baby villagers, so if a raid ends up reducing the population of your local village to 0, just hope there were a couple babies that survived and can carry the torch. Most players know you can middle click on a block in creative mode to pick the block, or in other words, give yourself that block so that you can use it. But not as many many players know that you can actually do the same thing in survival mode, and while it only puts that block into your hand if you already have it in your inventory, this is still extremely useful for building when you have several different blocks in your inventory. That's because you can easily swap through many different types of blocks without having to move things back and forth to your hotbar manually. Name tags in Minecraft can be used to make rainbow sheep, upside down mobs, and more, but a lesser known trick is to name a rabbit Toast. This will create a unique black and white rabbit that almost looks like a mini panda. This Easter egg was added by a Mojang developer to honor a Reddit user's girlfriend who lost her pet rabbit named Toast that looked just like the special skin in game. Lots of people like to do special Minecraft challenges with restrictions like not being able to jump and whatnot, which are sometimes pretty hard to complete. But did you know it's possible to beat Minecraft without moving at all? This sounds completely impossible at first, but a YouTuber named Eliotex found this special seed that spawns you on top of obsidian inside the end portal. By using some clever glitches and other game mechanics, Eliotex managed to go to the nether, get blaze rods, craft eyes of ender, go through the portal, and get to the end credits all without moving a single pixel. Zombie villagers are extremely useful, especially if you don't have a village near your house to use for trading, as the zombie villagers can be cured and then work like normal villagers. But did you know that while the zombie villager only has a 5% chance to spawn in any biome, if you go to the old growth pine taiga biome, they have a huge 20% chance to spawn, meaning you can easily find one on your first night and get villagers right away. Minecraft players are always looking for ways to break blocks faster, and due to an oversight in the game's code, blocks that are further from the player are actually mined faster than the ones right next to you, meaning standing back while strip mining is actually more effective than just mining the normal way. Sadly, this is only true in Bedrock Edition, but if you play Java, don't feel left out as the difference is very slight and practically not noticeable in most situations. Way back in 2011, Notch coded a red dragon into the game, which was a less aggressive version of the Ender Dragon that would spawn in the overworld. This dragon looked super cool, and it wouldn't break blocks like the Ender Dragon, even allowing the player to tame it and ride it throughout their world. For whatever reason, this idea ended up being scrapped and never fully implemented into the game, but it's crazy to think that if they went through with this, maybe we never would have gotten other flying methods like the Elytra and Happy Gas since they wouldn't be needed. The Nether is a great place to mine for gold, as it's one of only a couple ores that generate there, but you can make this much more efficient by using a Silk Touch pickaxe, since getting the actual ore allows you to smelt each one for a full gold ingot. This is so much better than normal mining, which typically gives you an average of only 4 nuggets per ore, less than half the gold that you get from using Silk Touch and a furnace. Bane of Arthropods is a criminally underused sword enchantment, since everyone just wants sharpness instead since it works on every mob, not just a couple. But one unique effect that Bane of Arthropods has on spiders, cave spiders, silverfish, endermites, and bees is that it will actually inflict slowness 4 onto those mobs in addition to doing more damage to them. The only problem is that if you have Bane 5 on even a simple wooden sword, it'll one-shot all of those mobs, meaning you'll never get to utilize the slowness mechanic. Most players think suspicious gravel and suspicious sand are only obtainable in creative mode or with commands, but they can actually be collected in completely vanilla survival. This is done by having either of those blocks fall into some cobwebs, since if it is in a falling state for more than 30 seconds or 600 in-game ticks, it will drop as a collectible item. This can also be done with bubble columns in the same way, but the block is more of a cool flex to have rather than a functional prize, since if you place it down and brush it, you won't get any treasure this way. Campfires in Minecraft are usually put out by right-clicking them with a shovel, but there's actually a secret alternative way to do it, which is by throwing a splash water bottle at the campfire, which will also completely extinguish the flame. Rabbits seem like a completely harmless mob that you can essentially ignore in almost any situation, since they won't hurt you or mess anything up. But you should actually keep these little creatures away from your crop farms, as if they get in, they will eat your carrots, causing them to go down one growth stage each time they take a bite. This can be super annoying if you are just about to harvest your fully grown carrots, so make sure and fence off the farms to keep those rabbits out. In 2011, Notch posted this first look at the enchanting table, which looks way different than what we have today. This is because the enchanting table was originally meant to be way easier to craft, as besides the diamonds, you only needed 4 cobblestone and a book. But aside from being cheap to craft, the table looked cheap as well, so Notch came up with this improved design, but when they were finally added in beta 1.9, he fully committed and made the obsidian version we all know and love today. Woodland mansions can generate every single color of carpet in the game through their different hallways and rooms. While this is mostly true, orange carpet is actually the only color that's impossible to find in mansions, so you'll have to go ahead and dye your carpet manually if you like orange. We've all heard of chicken jockeys, especially with the iconic moment in the Minecraft movie, but a similar mob that almost nobody knows about is the zombie jockey. This Bedrock exclusive mob is possible via a unique mechanic where baby zombies have a 15% chance to spawn as riders, but once spawned, they will immediately attach themselves to the nearest rideable mob. Typically this would be a chicken, sheep, spider, or even a horse, but if nothing else is around, these little guys can actually spawn on top of another adult zombie. This makes it look like the zombie is giving his kid a piggyback ride. The dragon head in Minecraft is easily found on the floating ships and end cities, and a lot of players like to collect these to either wear on their heads or to power them with redstone to see the mouth open and close. But another mob head that has a unique animation when powered is the piglin head, which when powered will cause its ears to wiggle back and forth like this. The first night on your Minecraft world can be super annoying since there's mobs everywhere and you don't want to rush building your first house to stay safe. Well, there's actually a way better way you can make yourself temporarily invincible, and all it takes takes is 3 logs. You can use the logs to craft some slabs, then make a composter and a trapdoor. Place the composter down and then the trapdoor on top, then get inside and close the trapdoor on top of you, which will put you in crawl mode. Then, even though your head, hands, and feet are all sticking out, mobs will be completely unable to hurt you, so you can safely wait out the night without committing to anything crazy. Don't you hate when you're chopping down a tree and that last log is just out of reach? Well, a super easy way to make this way less common is simply by leaving the bottom log for last so you can stand on it and reach 1 block higher. Then, even on those pesky trees that still have another log even higher than that one, if you jump while still trying to chop, it will stay partially mined and break after a couple seconds. This obviously doesn't work on those huge jungle trees as they're way too tall, but I have a trick for those as well, as if you mine in a spiral staircase pattern to the top of the tree, you can then stand in the middle and mine it all the way back down as well, meaning no logs are left behind. Even when you have good gear in the late game, killing endermen for pearls can be so annoying since they'll often teleport away once you hit them and then either take forever to come back or sneak up behind you. Luckily, there is a way to make this way easier, as with a simple boat, you can force the endermen into it and they'll stay put no matter what, meaning you can easily take them out with any weapon or even your bare hands if you have enough time. Unfortunately, even though they can't leave the boat, you still can't shoot them with arrows and they'll still just bounce off instead of the enderman teleporting away to avoid them. If you've ever been mining in the dark after you run out of torches, you've probably noticed that redstone ore will actually light up when walked on or when hit by the player. For many years now, players have requested for Mojang to make the ore actually send a redstone signal when activated, but for whatever reason they still haven't done it. There is still a really useful way we can take advantage of this mechanic though, as observers will detect this lighting up as a block update, meaning we can effectively use a piece of redstone ore as a makeshift pressure plate or button. The button part isn't that useful since you can do the same thing with note blocks, but what is useful is using it as a pressure plate. That's because if you're trying to design a trap or alarm system for your Minecraft house, the pressure plate often stands out like a sore thumb and warns players before they actually step on it. Well, with the redstone ore, you could actually place a carpet on top to completely hide it, and it will still send the redstone signal to the observer, so you can easily hook this up to some note blocks under your house to create a low-profile alarm system that'll be sure to catch any intruders trying to snoop through your chests. Making a wooden pickaxe is one of the very first things you do on any new Minecraft world, as you need it to get cobblestone so you can upgrade your tools and mine things like iron and lapis. But most players just throw this pick away as soon as they get 3 cobblestone, and there's actually a way we can squeeze a little bit more value out of it instead. We do this by using the wooden pickaxe as fuel in our furnace, as it'll usually save you a little bit of coal or wood, which are precious commodities in the early game. Not only that, but there are tons of less common items that can be used as fuel in a pinch as well, such as bamboo, scaffolding, sticks, saplings, other wooden tools, and even jukeboxes, which has to be the most expensive fuel ever since you need a diamond to make one. As cool as snow golems are, they really aren't all that effective at protecting you from monsters unless you have a lot of them, since they won't do any damage to normal overworld mobs and instead just knock them back. Well, if you place some lava between them and any hostile mobs, the snowballs will actually turn into fireballs as they pass through. For whatever reason though, in Java Edition these fireballs still don't do any damage to mobs, which doesn't make any sense, but in Bedrock Edition they'll actually cause the snow golems to light mobs on fire, eventually killing them. But hey, even in Java, it's still a fun thing to mess around with. Poisonous potatoes are often cited as the most useless item in Minecraft, since all they do is clog up your inventory and they can't be replanted or even used in a composter like other plants and foods can. But they actually get a way worse rap than they should, as they actually only poison you about half the time, and on top of that they actually give you double the saturation and hunger bars as a normal potato, so they can actually be really helpful in a pinch when you're low on food. Plus, even when they do poison you, it only lasts for 5 seconds, so unless you're already super low on health, you'll almost always be fine. Climbing down into a deep cave or getting down after building a high tower can be such a pain, and with speedrunners like Dream making water bucket clutches seem so easy, it can be tempting to try it out for yourself. But what if I told you there was a method that's just as fast, but way easier, and you don't even need iron or water to do it? That's right, in almost every scenario, boats are just a much better option for completely taking away fall damage without trying to pull off some crazy trick and risking losing all your hard-earned items. With boats, you can craft them with 5 planks of any wood type, which you'll probably always have on you, and using it is as simple as placing the boat, hopping in, and rowing off that cliff. If you're trying to get to another ledge that's a bit further away, you can even press shift to exit the boat and then re-enter it over and over, and while the timing can take a little practice, this can allow you to go way further and make boats just that much more useful. It's common knowledge nowadays that campfires can be a great alternative to furnaces in the early game because they can cook 4 food items at once without any fuel. But did you know campfires can be one of the best ways to create an easy to see landmark so you don't lose your base? The smoke signal from a campfire seems pretty weak at first since it only goes up about 10 blocks before fading, but by adding a simple hay bale below the campfire, that smoke signal reaches all the way up to 24 blocks, which you can see from much further away, especially if you put 2 or 3 of them around your base. And in addition to being easier than building a super tall dirt pillar, it also looks much cleaner. Torches have been a staple for Minecraft lighting ever since the game first came out, but their blue counterpart, the soul torch, is actually underrated since it has some advantages over the normal version. First off, regular torches are bright as they give off a light level of 14, which is great for exploring caves or spawn proofing your base. base. By comparison, the soul torch only gives off a light level of 10, which is just low enough to stop it from melting ice, meaning if you're wanting to build something like a cheap ice highway out of regular ice, you can keep the whole tunnel well lit without any risk of the ice melting and ruining your day. Beyond just not melting ice, soul torches also repel piglins, so they can be useful for keeping them away from your nether base. And on top of that, the torch's lower light and blue color can be a much better choice for lower light builds to give them more personality. So next time you need some light for a build, definitely consider the soul torch as a unique option. Everyone knows daylight sensors are an easy way to make lighting that only comes on during the nighttime, but there's also another way to use them that I bet a lot of you missed. These sensors can be wired up to block off certain areas during the nighttime. This can be useful for something like closing all the doors in your base at night so that mobs can't get in, since you might prefer to leave them open while it's light out for the ease of coming in and out. Even more useful though can be wiring these up to a wall around an area with villagers in it, so that once night falls, the villagers don't go wandering into the night and mobs can't get in to kill or zombify them. You might think these nighttime uses are counterintuitive since the signal gets sent when it's daytime, but don't worry, as you can make a simple inverter with a redstone torch like this that will reverse the effects. Most players know that you shouldn't hit villagers if you plan on trading with them. That's because they'll actually gossip about you to other villagers and they'll all raise their prices, making it hard to get the items you need. But what you might not know is that this gossip will only spread if the villager you hit lives to tell the tale, or if any other villagers are in line of sight when you damage them. So next time that villager won't give you the trade you want, make sure you take them somewhere secluded before you dispose of them so that you can still trade with the others. We all know one of the best ways to get emeralds fast is to chop down a bunch of trees, make sticks, and trade them with all your Fletcher villagers. What's annoying though is that even with shift clicking, you have to move your mouse all the way back to the trade and then to the item over and over as you trade. Well, it actually doesn't have to be this way, as by holding down shift with one hand and alternating between the spacebar and left click on your other, you can reset the trade extremely quickly and run that villager out of stock in 2 seconds or less. Now you'll finally be able to afford all those mending books from the librarian. If you want to resummon the Ender Dragon today, you use end crystals placed around the portal. But when Mojang first introduced this mechanic in 2015, the method was completely different, as you had to build a creeper face out of clay in the end. Nobody knows whose idea that was, but it's still one of the strangest design choices in the game's history, and it's a shame it didn't stick around. You can actually ride a zombified piglin, just not in the way you might expect. Hop on a regular pig with a saddle, then get it struck by lightning while you're still riding it. The pig transforms into a zombified piglin, but the game doesn't kick you off of it. You can't control it, but you're still on it, which is somehow both useless and incredible at the same time. Full moons in Minecraft do a lot more than just look cool, as they actually have a ton of different interesting effects on your world too. For example, half of all cat spawns will be black cats, hostile mobs like zombies and skeletons have a higher chance to spawn with armor or weapons, and spiders will have a higher chance to spawn with potion effects on hard difficulties such as strength, speed, or even invisibility. A more useful effect though is that slimes will spawn way more often in the swamp biome when the moon is full, so now would be a good time to go collect some slime balls. Minecraft has collected a ton of different options for the yellow splash text on the title screen over the years, as today there are over 400 different things that it can say. These splash text are stored in a file called splashes.txt in the .minecraft folder, so you can actually go in and add your own and they'll have a chance to appear in game. But if you just decide to delete them all, the game will display Missigno instead, which is a reference to a glitchy Pokemon that could be caught in some of the early Pokemon games using an exploit. The debug stick is a unique item in Minecraft that can be super fun but trippy to mess around with. This cannot be obtained in survival mode, but if you use commands to get your hands on one, you can create some super cursed things like half doors, half chests, floating torches, and more. If you haven't tried one of these before, simply left click any block or entity with it to cycle through its properties, and when you find one you want to mess with, hold down shift and right click to cycle through the different states. The score number that shows up on the death screen in Minecraft always catches players off guard, since unlike games like Mario, there aren't any coins or anything you would expect to give you a score. Well, this screen actually shows the total amount of experience points you've collected in that Minecraft life, with the very max possible being over 2 million, which is the 32-bit integer limit, or over 100,000 in-game levels. Using glitched shulker boxes from previous versions to duplicate XP, some hardcore players have actually hit this without any mods, which is pretty insane. Some hostile mobs in Minecraft have baby versions, but others don't. While there are surely mods you can use to add these other babies, we can actually use a clever build hack to make a baby warden. By using a player head placed down as a block and another on an armor stand, you get this little baby warden in completely vanilla Minecraft. You might be surprised to learn that large ferns and tall grass cannot be obtained with shears like shorter grass and leaves can. That being said, they can be obtained in completely vanilla survival, but only by finding them inside of village chests. Specifically, the large ferns can be found in taiga villages, while the tall grass is only found in savanna villages. Do you ever feel like creepers just fall down on you from nowhere and then explode almost instantly? Well, you're not crazy, as the creeper fuse usually takes a few seconds to go off, but when they take fall damage, this timer gets shorter. Not only that, but the game developer Jeb was so devious back in the day that he coded the creepers to understand how much fall damage they could take without dying, meaning creepers will actually purposely fall as far as they can without dying so that they'll have a near instant fuse and can cause maximum destruction. Let's just be glad they didn't try to do something like like this with the phantoms too. We all know that honeycomb is great for protecting anything made of copper so it doesn't oxidize, but most players don't know you can do this with signs too to make them completely uneditable unless you break them and replace them. This trick works for maps as well, as with a glass pane and a cartography table, you can lock your map so that changes to your world won't change the maps. This can be super useful for creating map art, since once you lock it, you can go get your resources back without ruining your precious art. If you make a platform out of powdered snow, you'll see that rain will go right through it. So if I were to use a Riptide Trident right here, most players would think I'd go flying into the air, but nothing actually happens. That's because the rain you see underneath powdered snow is actually ghost rain. It isn't real at all, since while you can see it on your screen, cauldrons won't fill, fire won't be extinguished, and Riptide doesn't work at all. Many players think that spiders are hostile at night and passive in the daytime, and this seems true on the surface, but it technically doesn't have to do with the day-night cycle at all. That's because this mechanic is only based on the light level of the blocks the spider is on, and a light level of 11 or lower makes the spiders hostile to the player, where 12 or above makes them passive. Once they do become hostile to the player though, the spiders cannot become passive again, so you have to make sure not to aggro them while they're in dark areas like caves or the surface if it's nighttime. I always see players killing turtles to try and get scoots for a turtle shell or turtle master potion. The reason they always come up empty-handed is because turtles only drop one scoot each, but not when killed, and rather when they grow up into adults. And for armadillos, if you want to make some wolf armor with their scoots, simply hang around them for a while, since they'll passively drop one every 5 to 10 minutes. So stop killing turtles already. Have you ever been playing Minecraft late at night and could have sworn that the title screen was spelled completely wrong? Well, you're not dyslexic, as there's actually a 1 in 10,000 chance every time you launch the game for the title to show as Mince Raft instead of Minecraft. It's so rare that most of you have probably never seen it, but if you do, just know your mind isn't playing tricks on you. Candles can be super annoying to work with when you place them in your builds for some unique lighting and ambience, only to realize you don't have a flint and steel to light them with. Well, in Bedrock Edition, you can actually light candles with a fire aspect sword by hitting them, which makes a lot of sense actually. Mojang, please add this to Java. Leaf litter can be a super useful fuel source in the early game, as it's everywhere if you spawn in the right biome, and can be easily collected with just your hands and used to smelt things and save you from wasting your coal. It can also be a unique touch that you can add to your builds, but if you can't find any due to not spawning in the right biome, simply smelt some leaves in a furnace and this will give you some without having to mine it. Clocks can be a useful tool in Minecraft, especially when you're on a long mining trip and want to make sure it's daytime before coming up to the surface. But who actually wants to waste 4 gold ingots to make a clock that you might not ever use again? So a clever trick is to just look at the item preview in the crafting menu, as this clock will actually show you the time without you even crafting it, meaning it's completely free to use. For any OG Minecraft players who want to relive the nostalgic old versions of the game, it can be disappointing to see that the earliest version available in the launcher is Release 1.0, which already had a lot of the features that are in modern Minecraft. But if you simply go into the launcher settings, you'll see a checkbox called Show Historical Versions of Minecraft in the launcher. If you check that box, you'll be able to add installations for any of the old alpha and beta versions as well, allowing you to experience what Minecraft was like way back in the day. But if you want the actual OG experience, you can play true classic Minecraft completely for free right in your internet browser by visiting classic.minecraft.net. Speaking of classic Minecraft, in the first versions of the game, there was actually only one block, with the game's code simply displaying a different texture on the block depending on the Y level. At high Y levels, the grass texture would be used, but at any other Y level, the cobblestone texture would be used, allowing the game's code to be extremely simple and still look good. Obviously, in later updates, this method of texturing was quickly thrown out, since Minecraft's world generation has since become much more complicated and requires very complex code to work properly. Banners aren't just good for decoration, as if you place any banner down and then right-click it with a map, it will mark the location with the same colored banner icon on your map. And if you want to take this one step further, you can use an anvil to name your banners before placing them, and your custom location name will be displayed on the map next to their icons. This can be a super useful way to keep track of different places in your world without having to always write down coordinates. While we're already optimizing our farming skills, if you prefer to just build larger farms to begin with so that you don't have to worry about using fortune to still get a big harvest, I have a trick for you to save a ton of time. Plants in Minecraft need light to grow or even exist, but this light does not have to be from the sun, as any light source in the game will do. We can use this quirk to our advantage, as we can build underground farms with artificial light sources no problem. But what makes this so useful is that by choosing to use a redstone lamp as your light source, you can easily turn it off with the simple flick of a lever, and all your crops will be instantly harvested. Then simply turn the lamp back on, collect your crops, replant, and rinse and repeat for the next harvest. Sprinting is a really fast way to get around your world in Minecraft, especially in the early game before you have mobs, elytra, and other tools to help you go faster. But what's annoying is that you need a lot of food to replenish your hunger, since it drains so quickly when you're sprinting around your world all the time. Well, there's actually a clever trick you can use to trick the game into thinking you're walking while you're actually still moving at full sprinting speeds. The way to do this is by holding down your sprint key, which is controlled by default for PC users, and when you start sprinting, simply punch any mob while continuing to hold the sprint key. For whatever reason, this completely messes up the game's code to the point where you can keep sprinting without using any extra hunger compared to walking. Minecraft players are always looking for the easiest trades to get a lot of emeralds from villagers with the least amount of effort. Sticks are a popular choice since chopping wood with a decent axe is super quick, and 4 logs ends up being worth 1 emerald once crafted into sticks. That's definitely a nice trade, but what if I told you can convert 3 dirt into 1 emerald instead? That's right, as if you simply place 3 dirt above some pointed dripstone, use water bottles on them to turn them into mud, and then wait until the dripstone converts the mud into clay, you can mine up all 3 blocks to get 12 clay balls, and trade 10 of them for an emerald from a basic stonemason villager. And if you then zombify this villager and cure it, the price will be slashed down to 4 clay balls, meaning 1 dirt gives you 1 emerald. And if you do this on a large enough scale, it's a nice thing to have running in the background and essentially give you a form of passive income in Minecraft. When you come across your first village in a Minecraft world, the villagers will usually run around once they're loaded in, often trapping themselves in caves or outright getting themselves killed. It can be a pain to try and keep them safe since they're always opening their doors and trying to get away, but a super easy way to contain them without needing to use any of your own blocks or items is to simply break their doors and replace them sideways. This makes it so the door is technically closed, so when a villager opens it to get out, it blocks itself in and is completely unable to escape. That way, when you need the villagers later for trading, they won't be lost or completely gone, and instead they'll be safely in their house waiting to be abused, I mean put to work. Make sure you do this from the right side though, as from the left side the door will open inward and still allow the villager to clip through. Speaking of placing things on the right side, a lot of players like to randomly place their torches on the floor, walls, and everywhere in between while exploring caves or strip mining. This seems fine as the torches still provide light either way, but we all know you usually end up getting lost in your cave systems and having to painstakingly mine your way up to the surface when you're done. Well, a simple trick to prevent this from happening is to simply stick to one side of the cave for your torches when mining. I like to use the right side since when I'm done I can simply follow the paths that have the torches on the left side to retrace my steps without any second guessing. Obviously, if you prefer your torches on the left side, you can do the same trick just in reverse, but the important thing is just to pick a side and stick to it. Nether fortresses are an essential structure you need to find to make Eyes of Ender and ultimately beat the game. But if you don't get lucky and find one close to your first portal, they can sometimes be a really big pain to find, especially since the Nether is full of rough terrain and hostile mobs. So the best way I've found to find a fortress quickly without nearly as much danger and annoying mobs is to simply ride a strider. All you need is a warped fungus on a stick and a saddle, which can both be easily crafted with early game materials like iron, leather, and wood. Then simply find the nearest lava ocean, hop on a strider, and you'll be able to traverse large sections of the Nether without much risk of getting hurt by mobs. And on top of that, you can easily see the large support pillars from fortresses down at lava level so you don't pass by any by mistake. While we're on the subject of the Nether, I have another super useful tip for you. By now, most players know that you can dry out sponges over and over to reuse them by smelting them in a furnace, and some more advanced players even know that you can recollect the water by leaving an empty bucket under the sponge while it smelts. But what a lot of you may have missed is that this furnace method is essentially useless since you can instead just bring your wet sponges to the Nether and place them down anywhere to instantly dry them out. This is not only way faster, but it doesn't require any fuel and can be easily done at any time since all you need is a portal which can be built anywhere at any time with just 10 obsidian. A common strategy for not getting lost in your Minecraft world is to place a common block like cobblestone every 10 blocks or so, leaving a trail that can be easily followed to retrace your steps back to your base. Well, there are 2 problems with this, the first being that random cobblestone all over your world really doesn't look that good and can make your world look cheap and messy. But even worse than that is that you have to place blocks super often to even have a trail you can actually follow, unless you want to waste a ton of time building a bunch of pillars. Well, I have a genius way you can fix both of these problems, which is to simply place bamboo instead of cobblestone. Bamboo is super easily farmable once you get just one piece of it, and the bamboo not only blends in better, but it'll quickly grow into tall shoots that can be seen from much further away, so you don't need to place them as often. Many players know that just like in real life, bees can pollinate crops in Minecraft too, as they'll get covered in pollen after hovering over flowers near their nests, and then any crops they fly over on their way back will have a chance to advance one stage forward in growth. But instead of just placing beehives all around your farm and leaving it up to chance, you can place leads on the pollen-covered bees to drag them over your crops on their way back to the nest. Or even better, you can make a glass tunnel like this that has your crops in it, and the bees will periodically fly over to the flowers and drop pollen all over your crops on their way back. Just make sure the flowers are 22 blocks or less from their nest, since they typically won't go further than that to find flowers. Many players are obsessed with lava buckets as fuel sources, since once you get to the Nether, you can easily harvest a bunch and it does a ton of smelting per bucket. That's understandable, but in the early game, most of us are realistically just going to use coal. And if you've ever tried putting a block of coal into a furnace as fuel, you may have been surprised to learn that it actually works. But if you pay close attention, you'll actually notice that the coal block does the equivalent of not 9 coal smelts, but 10, meaning it's actually a more efficient use of your coal overall. overall, as long as you're smelting a lot of items at once. Getting rid of lava pools can be really annoying, especially when you barely can't reach the other side, so you have to crouch and slowly bridge over there and then place blocks from there. Well, scaffolding might just be the solution, as you can easily place it from wherever you are to the other edge of the lava pool. And for those huge lava caves that usually have a lot of tempting diamonds in them, you can use the same trick to easily build a bridge way faster and more safely than crouching. It's really common for players to use slabs to spawn-proof certain areas in their Minecraft world. They definitely work, but unless you already have a ton of cobblestone or wood handy and nothing else to use it for, they can be expensive to craft for larger areas. Not only that, but if you're doing this for a build, all those extra slabs laying around usually doesn't look the best, and crafting nicer ones like with smooth stone is a process of its own. So I'd recommend trying out leaves instead, as you can get a whole bunch of them super quickly with a simple pair of shears, and you don't need to worry about them decaying since placed leaves don't decay. This will also solve your aesthetics problem, as a lot of times leaves can be easy to naturally incorporate into your builds, and they usually look a whole lot better than those cobblestone slabs. Swords in Minecraft are super easy to understand, as the more rare the material you make it with, the more damage it does. But did you know that axes don't actually scale the same way? That's right, as the stone, copper, iron, and even diamond axe all do the exact same damage. The only difference between them is that the iron and diamond axes can actually attack ever so slightly faster. So if you're using these for PvP or hunting mobs, I'd stick with a stone one unless you either have extremely good timing with your hits or you're able to afford a netherite upgrade to actually do some more damage. Sometimes when you have farm animals in Minecraft, you need to relocate them to a new house or different area. Leads can work, but you need a ton of them to get the job done if you have a lot of mobs. And while sheep and cows will follow you if you're holding wheat, pigs need you to hold carrots, leading to you taking multiple trips, which can be a pain. So try putting a carrot in your main hand and then wheat in your offhand. Then all three main passive mob types will follow you at once, which makes things so much easier. Losing your nether portal in the nether can be an extremely frustrating experience, and while there are some ways to keep track of certain points of interest like your portals, they usually take up inventory space. So what if I told you there's a way to do this without taking up a single one of your precious inventory slots? And no, it's not pulling out a pen and paper in real life. Some clever players have found out that you can simply name your armor and tools at an anvil and put the name as the coordinates of your house or nether portal. Then you can always easily reference it in game if you get lost, and you don't have to use any extra items to do it. That's not the only way to save inventory space though, as bundles can be super useful as well, and not in the way you might think. Obviously everyone knows how bundles work by now, and they can definitely seem like an early game item that you should throw out once you get shulker boxes. But did you know that you can actually put bundles inside of shulker boxes? This can be extremely useful, as shulker boxes are great at carrying a bunch of building blocks or other stackable items, but when you have a bunch of random items in small quantities, combining bundles with them lets you store over 1,700 unique items in a single inventory slot. That means you could literally store one of every single obtainable block or item in the entire game, including every wood variant, slab, colored block, and everything in between, and all that in a single inventory slot. But for a more practical use, this can be great for building projects where you need something like a hopper, a few doors, or other small amounts of items, as you can use bundles to ensure all the materials for the project fit inside a single shulker box. Hidden bases have been around pretty much since Minecraft first came out, and a popular way to do this has always been with paintings. In fact, I'd be surprised to find even a single Minecraft player who's never tried this, but a lesser known and unique way to hide your base is by using scaffolding and snow. Simply build a scaffolding pillar from the floor of your underground base up to the ground level, and then cover it up with snow. You should do this in a biome that already has snow naturally if possible, so that it actually blends in. Then you can simply walk over to the block where you know the base is and hold shift to crouch, which will then send you down into the base. The best part is that your friends will walk right over it and won't even notice anything is there, unlike the painting trick. The minecart with furnace is a weird item that most players have never used, as most of us just assume it's a way to put a furnace on wheels for easy transportation, which honestly doesn't seem that useful. But that's actually not true, as if you right click a furnace minecart while holding some coal, it'll automatically move along its track for a whole 3 minutes. And on top of that, the minecart will even go up slopes and push any minecarts in front of it along as well, forming a sort of train. It's not quite as fast as powered rails, but for the cheap cost, this can be an amazing option in the early game for transporting villagers, or you can use it to send a bunch of chest minecarts along to your new base when moving. This next item is one that has a much clearer use, which is the boat with chest, which can be a great way to move items across bodies of water. And some experienced players might know that these can actually feed into hoppers just like normal chests and minecart chests. But what I bet most of you don't know is that due to the boat's larger hitbox, if you line it up just right, the chest boat will actually feed into 9 hoppers at once, which can be a way faster way to get items into your item sorter or other redstone machines. Just look how fast it is compared to a normal chest. I mean, it's a crazy difference, and if you use this tip, you'll save a ton of time. While many mods have added planes to Minecraft, Mojang still never has, and a lot of players wish there was a way to make a plane in vanilla Minecraft. And while there definitely isn't a crafting recipe for a plane or anything like that, we can get pretty close with an experimental feature Mojang added a while back. When you're creating your world, head over to the More tab and click on Experimental. Then you can toggle on minecart improvements in that menu and go ahead and create your world. Make sure commands are enabled as well, as we'll need to use this command to increase increase the speed cap for our minecart. Then with a simple loop of rails and a couple of powered ones, we can make our minecart go faster and faster until it seems like it's about to crash your PC. Then just hit a lever to redirect the minecart onto a simple ramp and it'll go flying away super fast and far into the air. This can be done while you're inside the minecart by setting up a timer before getting in or just having really good timing to press the lever, but you can also do this with mobs inside. So add this to the list of creative ways to get rid of that librarian villager who won't sell you the right books. Diamonds, the iconic blue gems we've all spent hours mining for, were almost called something completely different. When diamonds were first added in InDev version 0.31 back in 2010, they were actually called emeralds. The texture file, the item name, and everything else was emerald. Notch renamed them to diamonds only a couple of days later, but the original emerald name was completely separate from the actual emerald gem we have now, which wasn't added until version 1.3 over 2 years later. Sugarcane is everywhere in modern Minecraft, but older players knew the plant by a completely different name. It used to be called reeds, which made sense visually because it was just this tall green stalk that grew next to the water. But once Mojang added sugar as an actual crafting ingredient, the old name started to not make as much sense. In beta 1.2, reeds were renamed to sugarcane. They kept the same uses and basic look, but now the name actually told players what it was for, which was turning it into sugar for cakes and even other recipes later. The nether dimension is one of the most iconic things in all of Minecraft, and it's been around since very early on in the game's history. But did you know that Notch almost called it the slip? When deciding on a name, Notch kept bouncing back and forth between the slip, the nexus, the core, and inferno before deciding on the nether. When the dimension was previewed to gaming sites in late October 2010, the press release actually called it the slip. He changed it to the nether literally last second on the day of release because the nether sounded much more original and unique than the other names. Creepers are basically a gaming icon at this point, but they only exist because of a coding mistake. Back in August 2009, Notch was writing the pig model in code and he accidentally swapped the length and height variables. The result was a tall, four-legged thing that looked nothing like a pig. Instead of deleting the weird model, he kept it, made it green, gave it an aggressive AI, and left it in the game, and thus the exploding creeper we all know and fear was born. The first night in your Minecraft world can be annoying since you want to go out exploring, but there are a ton of mobs that make it hard when you don't really have gear yet. Well, if you spawn near a desert, a great way to fix this issue is by riding a camel. Camels don't even need to be tamed, so you can simply right-click on one to ride it, and since camels are so tall, this will keep you out of reach of most mobs. Then if you have a saddle, either by crafting or finding one early, you can even control the camel and continue exploring your world throughout the night without worrying about the mobs. For years, the standard red flower in Minecraft was a rose. It looked like a little red rose with a green stem. In version 1.7.2, Mojang quietly renamed and retextured the rose into a poppy, and the old tall rose model became its own separate plant called the rose bush. A lot of players at the time didn't really notice the change, but if you load up a pre-1.7 world, you'll see roses everywhere where poppies should be, and they'll have a totally different texture too. Villagers had a much weirder official name when they were first added in beta 1.9 pre-release 1. They were called testificates, and if you walked up to one, you'd literally see the word testificate floating above its head as a name tag. Mojang renamed them to villagers in the next pre-release, but the name became such a big community joke that testificate even got added as one of the random splash text on the title screen. Mushrooms were originally called mushroom cows in-game. It's technically a pretty accurate name since they're cows with mushrooms growing out of their backs, but it doesn't really roll off the tongue the way mushroom does. Mojang renamed them very early on, so most modern players have no idea about the original name, but if you played in 2012, you may just remember calling them mushroom cows. For years, the standard zombie variant in the nether was the zombie pigman. When the nether update dropped in 1.16 and added regular living piglins to the game, the naming got really weird because the zombies were called pigmen and the living ones were called piglins. Mojang fixed this by renaming the zombie pigmen to zombified piglins to make the family tree make a lot more sense. But a lot of old players still call them by their original name out of pure habit, myself included. Minecraft used to have an achievement system, that classic pop-up that said things like taking inventory or getting wood when you did stuff for the first time. In version 1.12, Mojang completely rebuilt this system and renamed it to advancements. Same general idea, but now you got a proper tree-style menu where you could see all the goals laid out as a connected progression. It was a massive quality of life upgrade, but if you grew up on achievements, the name change definitely felt a little weird for a while. Similarly to the last tip, Bedrock Edition has the marketplace, which is basically an in-game store where you can spend mine coins on official adventure maps, skin packs, texture packs, and add-ons. Some of the maps on there are honestly more polished than full indie games. Just like with the servers, Java has no built-in store of any kind. Every map, skin, and texture pack has to be downloaded manually online and put into the appropriate spot in your Minecraft folder. Snowballs and eggs can both be thrown in any version of Minecraft, and they also won't deal any damage no matter which version you're playing on. That being said, snowballs will actually deal knockback to other players in Bedrock Edition, which makes them actually useful in PvP. In Java Edition, this doesn't work at all, making them useless in PvP, and only good for keeping mobs away. Having some basic temporary building blocks is a must in Minecraft, as you can easily make quick bridges in caves or the nether, pillar your way up mountains, and so much more. But most players go about getting these blocks the wrong way, as they usually just mine a bunch of dirt around their house, but this leaves a ton of ugly tunnels all over your world and ruins the aesthetic. click. A much easier and cleaner way to do this is to simply summon a snow golem with a carved pumpkin and 2 snow blocks, and then stand below it and spam your shovel like this. This will give you snowballs extremely quickly, which you can then craft into snow blocks for quick building without messing up your terrain. In Bedrock Edition, pumpkins will only drop 1 seed item when sheared. In Java, you instead get 4 seeds per pumpkin, which makes expanding your pumpkin farm a whole lot faster. Have you ever found one of those mushroom islands? They're one of the rarest biomes in Minecraft, but the mushroom that spawns there is actually a very useful mob. That's because if you craft a few bowls with some wood, you can milk a mushroom to fill the bowls with mushroom stew, and just like milk with regular cows, this can be done over and over with no limit. The only problem is that mushroom stew can't be stacked, but that's worth the trade-off for never needing to farm crops or breed mobs again. Skeleton horses are a cool part of Minecraft that a lot of players don't even know how to obtain. When a skeleton trap horse spawns during a thunderstorm, approaching it will cause it to split into 4 skeleton horsemen. In Java, you must kill the skeleton off the horse's back and it'll automatically be tamed, but you need to use a saddle to control it just like a normal horse. In Bedrock Edition though, the horse will just be rideable and controllable automatically, no saddle needed, which is pretty cool and convenient. Bedrock Edition's Wither is notoriously more difficult to defeat than its Java counterpart. That's because in addition to its attacks being more aggressive and destructive, it straight up has 300 hearts instead of the normal 150. So yeah, if you're playing Bedrock Edition for the first time, maybe go really far away from your house before fighting it. The mushroom utility doesn't stop there though, as in addition to infinite food, if you get a channeling trident and strike a mushroom with lightning, it'll turn brown and give you different types of suspicious stew depending on which flowers you feed it. This table on screen shows all the different unique effects you can get, and if you keep the mushroom handy, it can be an infinite source of that effect too by simply milking it. Java's launcher has a setting that lets you go all the way back and play any old version of the game, from release 1.0 down to early alpha and even classic. You can literally relive 2009 Minecraft if you want to. Bedrock has no version selector at all, you're stuck on whatever the current update is with no way to play older builds. But if you're a Bedrock player and still want to try out classic Minecraft, just go to classic.minecraft.net in your web browser and you can play for free without an account. In Bedrock, you can enable Education Edition features like chemistry resource packs, a code editor, chalkboards, NPCs, and so on right inside the world settings. Java has 0 Education Edition integration since Minecraft Education itself is built on the Bedrock codebase. If you look at modern Minecraft axes, they have that clean single-edged silhouette with the head on one side. But originally, every axe in Minecraft was double-sided. It had 2 axe heads, one on each side, basically looking like a medieval battle axe. Soon after this though, Mojang redesigned every tool to a cleaner, more practical look, but if you boot up just the right version, you'll see these battle axes in place of the normal ones. Bows in Minecraft also went through a significant visual redesign back in the day. Originally, they had essentially the same texture as they do now, except flipped 180 degrees like this. This looks super cursed since we're all used to the modern texture, but they really did used to look like this. Notch thought the same thing, so he flipped the bow around and thought it looked much better, and that's still how it looks today. Did you know the moon in Minecraft has phases? Full moon, half moon, new moon, just like the real one. But it wasn't always this way, as for the longest time, the moon was just a plain white square in the night sky with no variation at all. Moon phases were added in beta 1.9 pre-release 4, and eventually they even mattered mechanically, like slime spawning in swamps being strongest on a full moon and weakest on a new moon. So the moon went from a flat sky texture to something that could actually affect gameplay. Steve's default skin has actually changed more times than a lot of players realize, especially around his face. That very early Steve design had a beard or heavy stubble, then the detail disappeared from the in-game default skin for years, which is why official art and old screenshots can look inconsistent. In 2022, Mojang refreshed the default character skin and Steve officially got that beard and stubble look back. So the facial hair detail isn't a 1.8 change, it's a detail that vanished early on and returned much later. If we're being honest though, we all just thought this was his smile. Until version 1.13, every pumpkin in Minecraft naturally grew with a face already carved into it. You'd walk through a pumpkin patch and find all jack-o'-lanterns waiting to be picked up and put on your head, no shears needed. In 1.13, Mojang split them into 2 separate items, faceless pumpkins that grow naturally and carved pumpkins that you have to make yourself by using shears on a regular pumpkin. The change kind of removed some of the mysterious vibe that Minecraft worlds used to have, but if we're being honest, it makes a lot more sense this way. Ender chests are one of the most useful blocks in Minecraft because they give you storage that follows you everywhere. But when they were first added in snapshot 12W21A, they worked very differently on multiplayer servers, as every player shared the same ender chest inventory. If one player put diamonds in, another player could open their ender chest and take them. A few snapshots later, Mojang changed ender chests to use a separate inventory for each player, which is the entire reason they're so useful today for secure personal storage. Wood doors used to be one of the most annoying things to craft in early survival. The recipe was still 6 wood planks, but you'd only get a single door out of it, so for a 4-room house with 8 doors, you needed an entire 48 planks or 12 logs. Mojang fixed this in snapshot 14W02A by changing the recipe to give you 3 doors per craft, basically tripling the efficiency overnight, but honestly it might as well be 2 since all of us just throw the 3rd door away anyway. Fences also had a different recipe in the early days, as originally you'd craft a fence with 6 sticks and only get 2 fences out of it. Reasonable, but not great when you're trying to fence off a huge area. In version 1.8, Mojang changed the recipe to 4 wood planks and 2 sticks for 3 fences. That's also when wood-specific fences became a thing, as before that every fence was generic oak no matter what wood type you used to craft it. The notch apple, god apple, or enchanted golden apple used to be craftable, although it was one of the most expensive crafts in the game at the time. The recipe was an apple in the middle surrounded by 8 full blocks of gold, which is 72 ingots of gold for 1 apple. But the resulting item gave you absorption 4, regeneration 2, full resistance, and fire resistance for several minutes. The recipe was removed in 1.9 because Mojang felt the item was way too strong to be renewable, so now you can only find enchanted golden apples as rare loot in certain structure chests instead of crafting them whenever you have enough gold. Another Minecraft item that's super useful is the name tag, since you can use it to prevent virtually any mob from despawning, which is super useful for a variety of different farms in the game. Problem is, these still aren't craftable in game, so if you want to name your pet, you'll have to find one in a loot chest in some type of structure. But what if I told you there was a different way to name your pets? You heard that right, as many water creatures in Minecraft can actually be picked up in buckets, and then once you have the mob in the bucket, you can use an anvil to name the bucket. This actually names the mob inside, and once you pour it out, you can see it has the same effect as using a name tag. This even works with fun Easter eggs like the dinner bone name tag, which usually turns your pets upside down, but with axolotls it just gives them a more vibrant color on their back. Cocoa beans are literally everywhere in modern Minecraft. They grow on jungle trees, and you can farm them infinitely once you find just one. But in early versions, cocoa beans were only obtainable from dungeon chests, which made them way rarer than they are today. The whole concept of jungle trees having cocoa pods didn't come until version 1.3, when Mojang made cocoa beans actually renewable and farmable in survival. Most of Minecraft's iconic block textures have actually been redesigned at least once. Iron ingots, gold ingots, sand, stone, dirt, cobblestone, none of them look exactly the way they did in 2010. The 1.14 Village and Pillage update was the biggest texture refresh in the game's history, where Japa redesigned nearly every block in the game. Most players didn't notice the changes that much because they happened gradually, but if you compare modern Minecraft to old alpha screenshots, almost every block looks slightly or completely different, with some like cobblestone and netherrack being much softer and more subtle. Luckily, if you want to experience the original look of the game today, you can simply use the Programmer Art resource pack, which is automatically available to any player in-game. Crafting in Minecraft used to require you to memorize every single recipe yourself. If you wanted to make an obscure item, you'd either have to remember the recipe from a YouTube video or tab out to a wiki page. There was no in-game help for it at all. The recipe book wasn't added until version 1.12, and even then, it took a while to become the autofill, click and craft system it is today. Old school players still craft most things by hand purely out of muscle memory. Bone meal used to be absurdly overpowered for growing trees. Originally, using bone meal on a sapling would always grow it into a fully formed tree on the first try. You could fill a couple inventory slots with bone meal and grow an entire forest in a couple minutes. Mojang nerfed it later so it takes multiple uses and is way less reliable, which made bone meal feel like much more of a boost and less like a god mode shortcut. Compasses have always pointed you somewhere useful, but where they point has changed over the years. In modern Minecraft, a compass points to your world spawn by default, or you can lock it to a lodestone block for custom waypoints. In the Nether and End, the needle just spins randomly. Originally, there was no lodestone option at all, and compasses only ever pointed to the world spawn. The lodestone locking feature was added much later as a quality of life upgrade for serious explorers. Music discs have been a cool and rare item type ever since the game first came out. You used to only be able to find the original 2 in dungeon chests, but today there are over 20 unique music discs for you to find. And of those 20, 12 of them are obtained by having a skeleton shoot and take out a creeper. This can be super annoying to try to do, as other mobs often get in the way, and even when you do pull it off, you only have a 1 in 12 chance to get the disc you actually want. Luckily, there's a super easy way to get a ton of music discs at once, virtually guaranteeing you'll get at least one copy of your favorite track. And it's as simple as waiting until nightfall and luring a skeleton into a small area, which can be easily done using a trapdoor, since you can crouch through and let the skeleton follow you and fall in. Once they're in there, you can use a similar trick to lure as many creepers as possible into a small pit right next to where you trap the skeleton. Then it's as simple as placing one block of TNT and then placing some lava between the skeleton and the TNT. Once it's all set up, just move around behind the TNT until the skeleton shoots you, and when they do, their arrow will catch fire and activate the TNT, which counts as them killing all those creepers. Now all that's left to do is enjoy your huge pile of music discs that took almost no effort to get. Item sorters have been in the game for a long time now, and many players rely on them to keep their chests from getting super disorganized. Problem is, they can be a pain to construct, especially in the early game when you don't have a lot of resources. Not only that, but they can be a bit hard to understand unless you follow a tutorial block for block. So try using copper golems instead, as all you need is a carved pumpkin and a block of copper, even if it's weathered or oxidized. Then it's as simple as building a small enclosure to keep the golem above the chest, and then you can drop your items into the copper chest that spawns with it, and the golem will take the items from that chest and sort them into up to 9 nearby chests. I personally feel like keeping the copper golems contained makes things cleaner and more simple, but you can also just let them run wild in your house and they'll still do some good sorting. We all know woodland mansions are one of the rarest structures in Minecraft, but did you know that they hold one of the rarest blocks in the game as well. That block is a naturally generated diamond block, as the only place this can generate in all of Minecraft is inside of the lava room or obsidian room in one of these mansions. Not every mansion has these rooms, but I'm willing to bet you've looted one of these mansions before and walked right past the diamond block without even realizing it. So next time you see one of these rooms, mine to the center and grab those 9 free diamonds instead of letting them go to waste. Some old crafting recipes were stricter than they are today. Flint and steel is a perfect example. For years you had to put the flint and iron ingot in the correct diagonal arrangement, and if you placed the 2 items in the wrong spots, the recipe simply wouldn't craft anything. In update 1.7.2, Mojang made flint and steel along with a few other items shapeless so the ingredients can go anywhere in the grid. It's a tiny quality of life change, but old school players still remember messing it up and having to look it up to remember which way it was supposed to go. Strongholds were one of the first major underground structures in Minecraft, but they used to be completely pointless. When strongholds were first added in beta 1.8, they didn't have end portals at all. They were just elaborate underground dungeons with libraries, bookshelves, and silverfish, but no way to actually do anything with them. On top of that, there was only one stronghold per world, as opposed to today where there are several. End portals and the connection to the end dimension were added later, and this made the strongholds feel a lot more useful. Most plants in Minecraft need light to grow, which is why they will straight up break if they're underground and you remove the light source. But for saplings, you should always place a torch right next to them when planting. This is because without a light source, saplings will stop growing during the nighttime, meaning they'll take twice as long to grow if you don't place some torches to help them out when it gets dark out. The parched is a skeleton variant that spawns in the desert biome. In addition to not burning in sunlight and having less health than a normal skeleton, they also have a secret use that is honestly kind of broken. Since the parched is able to shoot arrows of weakness, we can use this to cure a villager super early without having to actually brew potions or find a rare igloo basement. Just find or craft a regular golden apple, which isn't hard at all, and then have a parched shoot a zombie villager and quickly feed it the golden apple to cure it. Respawning the ender dragon is pretty easy, as all you need is 4 end crystals, which you'll place around the portal like this. But did you know that you can actually place the crystals 1 block further out instead of right on top of the bedrock? This is such a strange feature since you have to go out of your way to place obsidian first, as it's the only placeable block that allows you to put an end crystal on top. Even stranger is that this feature is exclusive to Bedrock Edition, but I don't think any Java players will be complaining about this one. A normal zombie can detect you from up to 35 blocks away. You can decrease this range down to 28 blocks by simply crouching, which makes it harder for mobs to detect you. But by wearing a zombie head, the zombie's detection range gets cut in half, down to 17.5 blocks if you aren't sneaking and 14 if you are. This is nothing compared to the effect of an invisibility potion though, as using that alone will make you undetectable by zombies until you're 2.45 blocks away. And if you crouch with the potion effect active, it gets you just below 2 blocks at 1.96, meaning you can practically walk right by the zombie without them seeing you. If you name an arrow using an anvil, it'll keep its name even after being shot. This seems useless at first, but you can actually use this to communicate with other players from a distance, as by naming your arrows and shooting them over to each other, you can have a full-on conversation this way. Just be careful with your aim so your message doesn't end up in the wrong hands. By using this command, you can put pretty much any block on top of your player's head. This is pretty cool, but what's even cooler is that Mojang added a few Easter eggs with this mechanic, such as when using an end rod, which puts it on your forehead and turns you into a unicorn. You can also do this with a fence gate to get a nice mask, or with a glass block to give yourself an astronaut's helmet. Have you ever wondered why players sometimes just throw their splash potions straight up into the air instead of just throwing them at the ground like the rest of us? Well, that's most likely old muscle memory kicking in, since splash potions used to give you the full duration only if you threw them into the sky so that they landed directly on your head. But with Snapshot 25W18A in April 2025, Mojang changed it so that you can throw the potions directly at your feet and still get the full effect. If you do mess up and the potion lands further away though, you will get the effect for less time, which scales linearly with how far away it lands. If you ever need to know which direction you're facing, there's a neat trick you can use with item frames and maps. Whenever you place a map and do a horizontal item frame, the top of the map will always be facing north by default. This can come in handy, but mostly for Bedrock players, as in Java, the F3 debug menu will show you exactly which cardinal direction you're facing at any time, which is much more convenient. Did you know the player used to take damage if they punched a cactus in early versions of Minecraft? In Minecraft Alpha, you would actually get hurt by punching a cactus, which made a lot of sense since this would obviously happen in real life too. But for whatever reason, in early beta, Mojang decided to remove this feature, which seems like a very weird change to make since it didn't really cause any issues and was way more realistic overall. Most of us already know that snow golems can do damage to blazes, but did you know that they used to be able to damage the ender dragon too? Before the combat update in 1.9, snow golems would actually do a tiny bit of damage to the ender dragon when they hit it. It would take the snow golems exactly 400 hits to fully kill the dragon on their own, so you would need a massive army of them to actually pull it off. But since snow golems are so easy to make, it wasn't that big of a deal, and alternatively, you could just collect 400 eggs from your chicken coop and use those to damage the dragon too, but it was patched out in the same update. Everyone knows foxes are smart enough to pick up and use some tools and weapons, like swords, which will make them deal more damage or even light things on fire if it has the right enchantment. But did you know they can actually pick up and use maces as well? And not only that, but because foxes have the option to use a pounce attack where they jump up a few blocks into the air and land on their prey, they'll actually gain a huge damage boost from the mace and can often one-shot other mobs. Minecraft is a game that's full of Easter eggs, and one that a lot of people don't know is that when an evoker gets near a blue sheep, it'll actually turn it red. This seems super random at first, but when you remember that the creators of this game are a bunch of nerds, it starts to make a lot more sense. This mechanic is actually a reference to Age of Empires, a video game from the 90s in which priests would convert blue enemy units into red ones. One of Minecraft's most famous facts is that the creeper, the most iconic mob in the game, was actually created completely by accident, as the devs accidentally made a pig that was vertical instead of horizontal. But this wasn't the only time Mojang got caught using the same code for multiple mobs, as in beta 1.2 and 1.3, it was discovered that you could actually right-click squids with a bucket and milk them just like cows. This seems so random at first and was thought to be just another Easter egg, but Mojang actually just made this feature by mistake since squids use the same code as cows, so they quickly fixed it, and unfortunately you can't do this anymore in modern versions. Have you ever wondered why Eyes of Ender and Ender Pearls have a green color to them, even though Enderman and the End Dimension have a more purple theme to them? Well, that's actually because Endermen were originally coded to have green eyes, but the developers ended up changing them to purple soon after to stay on theme with the portal and the End Dimension. But for whatever reason, they decided to leave the green color scheme on the Eyes of Ender and Ender Pearls, and now they're way too iconic to change. Drowns are simply zombies that ran out of breath underwater, as they'll even convert into drowns after 30 seconds of being submerged. But did you know that husks will turn back into regular zombies after 30 seconds of water time as well? That's right, and the same thing happens with skeletons, as if you cover them in powdered snow for half a minute, they'll turn into strays. Mobs like zombies and skeletons have long been able to spawn in with armor and even enchanted weapons, and this makes sense since they share almost the same 3D model as the player. But did you know you can actually put armor onto villagers as well? If you ever tried to use a dispenser to put armor onto a villager, you probably noticed that it doesn't seem to do anything, and it seems like they just picked up the armor into their inventory. But the armor is actually fully functional, just not visible, and all of the enchantments work as well, meaning you can make your villagers super strong and protect them from zombies using some extra armor if you have any lying around. Spectator mode is something not a lot of players use very much, especially since it seems a little pointless, at least in single player, but a really cool detail Mojang added is the ability to click on mobs to see from their point of view. For most mobs, this just looks like your normal vision, but if you click on a creeper, you'll see that they actually only see in shades of green. And for Endermen, all colors are completely inverted, which looks super weird, but not as weird as spiders, which have 8 different eyes, meaning their vision looks completely split like this. Mojang put a surprising amount of effort into something most players will never see. Soul Sand is a super common block that Minecraft trappers like to use to slow players down, but just be grateful you weren't playing in 1.15, since Mojang added a mechanic where players could put ice below Soul Sand blocks to make them slow you down even more. This was super annoying since players could make traps that would utilize this mechanic plus slowness potions to make it impossible for you to run away, which made you an easy kill to steal your loot. Luckily, Mojang has since removed this in a later update, so now Soul Sand isn't that scary. When you take damage in Minecraft, armor damage is usually spread evenly across all 4 pieces, but a falling stalactite only hits your head, and the game actually accounts for this, dealing the damage almost entirely to your helmet. The same concept applies to anvils as well, and if one falls far enough, it can even completely shatter a netherite helmet in one hit. On April Fool's Day 2020, Mojang released a fake snapshot called 20W14 Infinite, supposedly the first look at something called the Ultimate Content Update. In the snapshot, you could write anything you wanted in a book and throw it into a nether portal, and it would transform into a unique dimension based on whatever you wrote. The same text always generated the same dimension, meaning there were over 2 billion unique dimensions total, and that's per world seed, making the actual number of possible combinations nearly infinite. Mojang hid 42 fully handcrafted Easter egg dimensions inside it too, which you can access by writing any of these phrases in a book before putting it in the portal in that version. Minecraft Pocket Edition used to have a system where you could actually dye banners with different patterns by making those patterns out of different colored dyes right in your crafting table. Since Bedrock is based on the old Pocket Edition, they've kept this system to this day, and it's a unique alternative to using a loom, but it uses way more dye and isn't as polished as the actual loom. In Java Edition, you always have to use a loom if you want to dye any banners. Bedrock cauldrons do a lot more than Java cauldrons. On Bedrock, you can fill cauldrons with dyed water, then use that colored water to dye leather armor directly in the cauldron. You can also fill up cauldrons with potions and then pick some up using a bottle, which honestly makes a lot of sense. Java keeps cauldrons much more limited, as you can only fill them with water or powdered snow, which honestly makes them nearly useless in that version. Boats are a super useful way to transport mobs like villagers, especially in the early game when you don't have a ton of resources. But did you know this is actually 10 times easier to do in Bedrock Edition? That's because in Bedrock, you can simply row your boat into a mob and it'll automatically be put into the boat, whereas in Java Edition, you can't pick up mobs while rowing. So in Java, you have to try awkwardly pushing the boat into the mob you're trying to catch, and this can seem super buggy and inconsistent at times, which makes it frustrating. Mojang, please fix your game. Some of you might know that parrots will actually dance if there's music playing on a nearby jukebox, but if you've ever paid close enough attention, you'll see that in Bedrock Edition, your parrot will actually dance to music even if it's on your shoulder. On Java, this doesn't work at all, and the parrot will just stand still whether there is music or not. Underwater visibility is so much clearer in Java Edition. In Bedrock Edition, when you're diving underwater, it looks super foggy murky, and it's really hard to see anything that's more than a few blocks in front of you. Java's underwater is a lot brighter and clearer, making it so much easier to find underwater ruins, shipwrecks, or ocean monuments without night vision. In Bedrock Edition, when it snows, the leaves on spruce trees will slowly turn white, even if they don't have snow built up on top of them. Once they're fully white, they'll stay that way until the snowstorm ends, and this is a super cool and immersive feature that makes the forest look great in snow. In Java Edition, this quirk is completely absent, and leaves will not change their color no matter how hard it snows. The debug stick is a super useful item you can give yourself in vanilla Minecraft using commands. This stick can be used to create all sorts of illegal and cursed things like messed up doors, white lightning rods, and plenty of other cool build hacks or textures. But this stick can only be found in Java Edition, and no amount of cheats or commands can give you one in Bedrock. Those little groups of pillagers that can randomly spawn in your world are called patrols. These patrols can only spawn with a light level of 7 or lower, which means it either has to be nighttime or they have to spawn at the top of a cave or under a tree or something so that the light level is low enough. But in Bedrock Edition, if you're playing on normal or hard difficulty, the patrols can spawn at any light level, even in broad daylight. The dragon egg, which is famously a one-time drop per world in Minecraft, can actually be obtained twice in Bedrock Edition. Once you defeat the dragon the first time, you can respawn it with end crystals, and the second kill will drop a second dragon egg. In Java, the egg only drops the first time, and any future kills give you experience and a portal, but no egg. Piglins only take 6 seconds to barter your gold in Java, whereas in Bedrock Edition, this takes 8 seconds per gold, and that difference can add up really quickly and make Bedrock bartering feel so slow. Luckily, there is an exploit we can use to make Bedrock bartering nearly instant, which is by breaking and replacing a chest or gold block near the piglin to aggro it, which will skip the animation entirely and make it trade instantly. To make this even better, we can put a sticky piston in the bartering area and hook it up to a redstone clock to have it constantly pushing and pulling a gold block back and forth, which will make the piglin trade through all your gold at hyperspeed. Rain, snow, and thunderstorms feel like such basic Minecraft features that it's crazy to find out they weren't always in the game. Weather wasn't added at all until beta 1.5 in April 2011, over a full year after Minecraft was publicly playable. Before that, the sky was just permanently clear no matter where you went. Setting your spawn point by sleeping in a bed is another feature that is so fundamental to Minecraft it feels like it's always been a thing, but it wasn't. When beds were first added, they were purely a way to skip the night. If you died, you respawned at the world's original spawn point like a brand new player every single time, no matter where you built your base. Mojang added the spawn setting behavior later, completely changing how players designed their bases, as now your bed location was suddenly really important. Speaking of beds, every single bed in Minecraft used to be red. That was the only option for over 5 years of the game's life. If you wanted a bedroom in your build with anything other than red bedding, you were just out of luck. In version 1.12, Mojang finally added beds in all 16 dye colors, which let players actually color coordinate their bases and also made bedrooms way more customizable. Smithing tables had their function completely changed in version 1.20, and a lot of players are still annoyed about it. They used to upgrade diamond gear to netherite by combining a diamond tool with a netherite ingot, simple and clean. For every one netherite ingot, you could upgrade one piece of gear, no questions asked. Nowadays, you also need a netherite upgrade smithing template, which is a separate item found in bastion chests. These templates can be duplicated, but it takes 7 diamonds and a netherrack, which is a significant added cost on top of the netherite itself. But I guess the best armor and tools in the game need to feel like a grind to obtain, and now they definitely do. If you've never heard of the Farlands, this is one of the most legendary bugs in Minecraft history. In older versions of Minecraft, if you traveled about 12.5 million blocks from spawn, the terrain would completely corrupt into these massive glitched out walls of land. It was caused by an integer overflow in the world gen math. The XZ Farlands were patched out of Java in beta 1.8, but Bedrock actually kept its own Farland-style terrain bug for much longer after that. Ultimately, the classic Bedrock Farlands were removed in 1.17.30, but strange distance effects still happen at extreme coordinates to this day. Minecraft worlds have gotten taller over time. Originally, the world height was capped at 128 blocks from the bottom bedrock to the highest buildable sky level. Mojang doubled this to 256 in version 1.2.1 with the Anvil world format. Then 1.18's Caves and Cliffs Part 2 expanded the total playable range to 384 blocks, giving us way more sky to build up into and way more depth underground for the new bigger caves and deep slate layers. Cave generation in old Minecraft was honestly kind of boring, just narrow, twisty tunnels that all looked basically the same no matter where you dug. Version 1.18 completely overhauled how caves generate, introducing huge aquifers, cheese caves the size of stadiums, twisty noodle caves, lush caves with vines and azalea trees, and dripstone caves with stalactites and stalagmites. Players who load up pre-1.8 worlds today are always surprised by how cramped and lifeless the old caves feel compared to modern ones, although they still hold a special place in any OG player's heart. The end used to be the most boring dimension in Minecraft. When it first dropped in version 1.0, the end was literally just one floating endstone island with the ender dragon, the obsidian pillars, and a return portal. Once you killed the dragon, there was really nothing else to do other than maybe build an XP farm. Version 1.9 transformed the end by adding outer islands reached through end gateways or long bridges, plus end cities, end ships, shulkers, and the elytra. Suddenly, the end could actually be visited for longer than 5 minutes without getting bored. Even with all of that though, players are still always asking Mojang for a modern end update like they did with the Nether when the new biomes and netherite were added. Believe it or not, biomes weren't always part of Minecraft. In the earliest versions, the entire world was just one giant uniform biome with the same trees, the same grass color, and the same general vibe everywhere you went. Biomes were first added to the game in the Alpha 1.2.0 Halloween update, transforming Minecraft from a flat sandbox into a world with actual regional variety. They've since been overhauled multiple times as well, with new biomes or mini biomes being added in almost every update nowadays. Modern bows in Minecraft have a durability bar and require you to pull them back before firing to shoot further. But when bows were first added, they didn't have any durability or any firing delay at all. This meant as long as you had a good amount of arrows with you, you could hold down or spam your mouse button to just shoot an endless stream of arrows at your enemies. And if you missed most of your shots, no worries, you could just pick up all the arrows and start spamming all over again. Unlike zombies, which are always hostile to the player no matter what, drowns are completely neutral during the daytime. Just be sure not to enter any body of water, as this will make them angry and they'll come after you. When you jump into the end portal after defeating the dragon, most players think it'll just take you back home to wherever your bed is. That is true most of the time, but if you throw an ender pearl into the portal, you'll actually be taken to the original world spawn instead. One of the craziest mobs in vanilla Minecraft is the witch riding a chicken. This mob can be created when the player finds a baby zombie villager riding a chicken, which will spawn naturally from time to time. Then simply wait for the zombie villager to grow up, cure it with a golden apple, and then once you have the villager still riding the chicken, just strike it with lightning to turn it into a witch. Everyone knows you can dye your shulker boxes all different colors so you can tell which is which, but in Bedrock Edition, you can actually dye the shulkers themselves too. Mojang, why can't we do this in Java yet? Dolphins are super helpful mobs that can help you swim faster underwater, but they can be even more helpful if you feed them some fish. Doing so will make the dolphins swim towards the nearest underwater structure, such as underwater ruins, shipwrecks, or even ocean monuments. Tridents are so annoying to get, since even when you finally find a drowned that has one, it only has a small chance to drop it when killed. If you already have a nautilus shell though, you can actually throw that on the ground and the drowned will pick it up and drop its trident for you 100% of the time. The end dimension is one of the most iconic parts of Minecraft, but did you know that only 1 in 10 players ever actually make it there in survival? So if you've ever made it there without cheating, consider yourself a Minecraft pro. Parrots are a fun mob that you can easily tame by using any type of seeds. And since they only spawn in jungles, you might think they would have a taste of the cocoa beans here and there, since those spawn in the jungle too. But just like in real life, chocolate is actually toxic to parrots, and if you feed them a cookie, this will actually kill them immediately. So next time, save those cookies for yourself. Most players know by now that creepers are afraid of cats, but did you know that spiders actually have the same fear, but for armadillos? Yeah, for whatever reason, spiders won't go anywhere near an armadillo and will run away if one comes near them. This makes armadillos a great deterrent for spiders around your base, so if spiders scare you, build your house in a savanna or badlands biome where there are plenty of armadillos to keep them away. Snow golems are a little scary to look at with their aggressive jack-o'-lantern faces, even though we all know they're passive to the player. Well, there's actually an easy way to fix that and save resources at the same time, as if you use shears on one, its jack-o'-lantern head will pop right off, giving it back to you and revealing a friendly smile underneath. Now with your pumpkin back, you can go build another snowman. There's a clever way to save name tags when naming your water pets in Java Edition. This is done by instead naming the bucket with your water creature inside, and then when you pour them out, the name will stay with them. If you try to do this in Bedrock Edition, the pet will come out with no name, and even if you pick them back up, the bucket's name will be completely reset. If you've ever wondered how YouTubers can get this super detailed screen that shows everything from the biome they're in to even their PC specs, that's because they're playing on Java Edition. By pressing F3, Java players get this massive debug overlay that shows you literally every stat about your world and character. Bedrock doesn't have anything close to this, as all you can do in Bedrock is enable show coordinates in your settings and you'll get this basic little overlay, but nothing more. Java's most up-to-date creative inventory is split into 11 item sections like building blocks, food, combat, spawn eggs, and more. In Bedrock, the creative menu is much simpler with only 4 main sections: construction, equipment, items, and nature. This is most likely because a lot of Bedrock players use mobile devices or consoles paired with controllers to play the game, and this makes navigating through a bunch of tabs a lot more difficult. Java's combat system has a hidden timer that builds up between sword swings, shown by the little cooldown bar above your crosshair. Swing too fast and you'll only do a fraction of your weapon's full damage, so you actually need to wait for the bar to refill if you want to hit hard. This was added in update 1.9, and it was one of the most controversial changes in Minecraft history since many players say it ruined PvP. However, Bedrock Edition was never given this cooldown system at all, meaning you can just spam click and every hit will deal full damage to players and mobs. Speaking of Java combat, if you fully charge your attack and swing a sword while moving slowly, you'll do a horizontal sweep attack that hits every mob in front of you at once. It's a great way to clear out a group of zombies in a cave or sweep through a raid. Bedrock doesn't have sweep attacks at all, so every hit is single target no matter what sword or enchantment you have. This also means that the sweeping edge enchantment is completely missing from Bedrock Edition, as it would have no use if they were to add it. We all know that redstone sometimes works completely differently between Minecraft's 2 versions, but one simple yet huge difference most players don't know about is block entities. Block entities are things like pistons, hoppers, and furnaces, and in Bedrock Bedrock Edition, these can all be pushed around by pistons, allowing for a lot of unique redstone contraptions. In Java, if you try to activate a piston that has one of these block entities in front of it, the piston won't budge at all. In Java, every solid block, including slabs, stairs, and farmland, fully blocks light passing through it. On Bedrock Edition though, those same blocks actually let light pass right through them like they're transparent, even if they fully cover up the light source. This makes it possible to completely hide light sources below these blocks in Bedrock, which is honestly a super useful feature, even though it doesn't make a lot of logical sense. The new sulfur cubes in the latest Minecraft snapshots are super fun to mess around with. People have discovered all sorts of crazy ways to abuse the cube's physics to do insane things, such as using the tick freeze command in Java Edition to completely freeze time. With time frozen, the player can hit the cube as many times as they want, and that momentum will keep getting stored. Then, when you unfreeze the tick speed, the cube will go flying off into the distance insanely quickly, with enough hits causing it to look like it just disappeared completely. Due to Bedrock Edition not having the tick freeze command, this isn't possible at all in that version. When you break a block that has snow on it in Java Edition, the snow layer will be broken and won't even drop as an item to be picked up. But in Bedrock, the snow layer will fall like sand and gravel do until it lands on another block below it. It can even fall on other snow layers and it'll start stacking up, which is something that you can only do in Java by placing it manually or with a snowstorm. In Java Edition, the only ways for a redstone signal to activate something like a piston is to either pass right next to it one block higher than it, or to flow directly into it like this. If you just have a line of redstone running alongside the piston like this, it won't activate, but in Bedrock Edition, the redstone will naturally form a link to the piston and activate it even if the line curves elsewhere. This small quirk actually makes a huge difference in how many redstone contraptions work, and it's important to know which version you're on so that you don't mess up your redstone. When Endermen were first added in beta 1.8, they could pick up almost any solid block in the game, including bedrock, monster spawners, and even chests with items still inside them. This was a huge problem because Endermen would casually wander through your base and just rearrange your build or steal a chest full of valuables like diamonds. Mojang quickly hard-coded a strict list of blocks Endermen are allowed to pick up. Today, they're basically limited to grass, sand, flowers, and a handful of other random naturally occurring blocks. Skeletons in modern Minecraft are deadly ranged mobs that snipe you from impossible distances with their bows, but that's not how they originally worked. When skeletons were first added in survival tests, they were melee mobs. They'd just walk up to you and punch you with their bony fists just like regular zombies. Bows were given to skeletons in the very next test version, completely transforming how dangerous they felt and making them the iconic ranged threat we know today. This also gave skeletons a unique identity so they wouldn't just feel like retextured zombies. Everyone knows zombies burn in the daylight. That's pretty much the most basic survival rule in Minecraft, as once the sun's up, you're safe. But in the earliest versions of the game, zombies didn't burn at all. They'd just walk around in the sun like nothing was wrong. Mojang eventually added the daylight burning mechanic we know today, and then later updates went even further and gave zombies AI to seek shade and survive, which is why you sometimes find them hiding under trees or overhangs during the day. Slime balls are essential for tons of crafts in modern Minecraft, but there used to be a really annoying rule about getting them. As you know, only the smallest slimes actually drop slime balls, and big slimes used to be coded to die instantly if you did enough damage, rather than splitting like they do now. So if you had a strong enough sword, you would actually never get slime balls to drop since they would never split into small slimes. This mechanic was only fixed in beta 1.9 pre-releases so that the slimes would always split no matter how much damage you did, only after years of players accidentally wasting slimes by killing them the normal way. Wolves are tamed with bones in Minecraft, which makes thematic sense since wolves are basically dogs. But in Notch's early design, wolves were going to be tamed using pork chops. That idea was changed before they were released in beta 1.4. Bones from skeletons turned out to be a much better fit, as taming a wolf with the bones of its enemies is way cooler than just feeding it raw pork. I'm sure we've all seen some interesting Minecraft seeds at some point, like when there's a mansion that generated super high in the sky, or when multiple structures end up right on top of each other. Well, none of those come even close to this insane seed that was found a few years back by YouTuber Cracked Magnet. Upon loading up the world and going to these coordinates not too far from spawn, you'll find a woodland mansion in the middle of a big ocean with no dark oak forest anywhere nearby. That already seems impossible, but it gets way crazier as there's a village right outside the front door, and upon entering the mansion through the main entrance, you'll even find a buried treasure chest underneath the wooden floor. As if the pillagers weren't already encroaching enough on the villagers' space with their mansion, there is also an unbelievably tall pillager outpost right on top of the mansion, with a frozen aquifer floating up next to it. Going back down though, you'll find that all of this has been sitting on top of an entire ocean monument with super long support pillars stretching down almost all the way to the bedrock. And the cherry on top of this already insane world generation is that underneath the ocean monument there is a huge deep slate structure that contains the end portal inside. This seed only exists in Bedrock Edition, but I'll leave the seed and coordinates in the description so you can check it out for yourselves. The Chaos Cubed game drop got a lot of people back into Minecraft due to the fun new features like the sulfur caves, geysers, and of course the sulfur cubes. But one change that Mojang snuck in is that they removed the ability to allow cheats and change game modes in hardcore mode, which is technically how it used to be for years before Microsoft took over the game and changed it back in 2016. So now we're back to the death screen truly being the last thing you see if you die in hardcore mode, as you're no longer able to go into spectator mode to at least least fly around your world and reminisce if you die. A lot of players are annoyed by this since having the backup options was nice in case your world glitched and killed you by mistake, but on the other hand, now it will be much harder for YouTubers to fake their hardcore worlds, which I would say is a good thing. I've already talked about how Mojang was originally going to add a blue frog to the game along with the other 3 colors, which means we would have had an amazing looking cerulean frog light as well, but another color of frog and frog light that players have asked for is a red one, which would be a very unique and dramatic lighting option. Well, if you download and play the Alex's Caves mod, it adds primordial caves where golden frogs can spawn. These golden frogs not only look cool, but if you give them a small magma cube to eat, they'll give you the amazing carmine frog light. Now, if only Mojang would just give us some more frog colors in the vanilla game. Hostile mobs like zombies have clever pathfinding AI where they'll avoid walking into dangerous blocks like cactus or fire, but some danger blocks like magma blocks will actually cause the hostile mobs to avoid not only the block itself, but any adjacent blocks as well. So by placing magma blocks underground right next to your doorways like this and adding an alternate path with trapdoors that mobs think they can walk on, they'll never come into your house and you can still come and go as you please. Most players know that to make an end portal in creative mode, it won't work unless you stand in the middle and place all of the frames pointing inward like this. But there's actually one other orientation that also works, and you would probably never find it out on your own. If you place 3 frames on the ground and then build the sides facing inward, you can then fill in the top 3 frames facing the opposite way as the bottom 3, and once you fill in all the eyes, it will generate the portal awkwardly off to the side like this. Even though this glitch was completely harmless, Mojang patched it in 2024, so you'll need to load up an earlier version of the game if you want to test it out. It's a well-known fact by now that if you find an azalea tree on the surface, you can dig down underneath it and you'll always find a lush cave. But as of version 26.2, this isn't the only feature of its kind. As with the new sulfur caves, Mojang added a similar feature to the azalea tree, where if you find one of these sulfur springs on the surface, you can dig down and find one of the new sulfur caves. These springs can be rare on their own too, but they're actually not too bad if you just stick to flatter areas like deserts, swamps, and some plains biomes, as the springs are much more likely to generate in those areas, so just stay away from mountainous terrain and you'll find one in no time. In version 1.9, Endermen were updated to drop whatever block they're holding when killed, which was done to prevent them from grabbing important blocks and simply deleting them when killed. But one unintended consequence of this update was that when Endermen would pick up a cactus block that wasn't the bottom block that touches the ground, it would register as a completely separate block entity in the game's code. Since this entity didn't have a texture in the game files, it would just display this huge purple and black block model when you held it, which looked super cursed, but this was removed completely a few months later in 1.10. We all know you need 2 water source blocks to make an infinite water source, but there's actually a super easy way to turn just 1 water source into 2 as well. You can do this by simply planting a seagrass 1 block below the water source and using a bone meal on it, which will cause it to grow and turn the bottom block into a source as well. Then just grab both water source blocks with a bucket and you have your infinite water source. Foxes are one of the most skittish mobs in Minecraft, as they'll always run away if you get anywhere near them. And while you can't tame foxes outright, you can breed them with sweet berries, and the baby fox that came from this breeding will trust the player who bred them. This trust is very similar to how tamed wolves act, as while it won't sit for you or follow you around, it will lose the urge to run away from you and can also attack mobs for you like a wolf. Witches and wandering traders can both be killed while they're drinking a potion, and they'll have a chance to drop it for the player to pick up. This is pretty cool, but a similar feature with even more potential is with wandering traders specifically, as in Bedrock Edition they'll hold one of their item trades in their hand if you walk up to them while holding an emerald. And you guessed it, if you kill them while they're holding an item, it will also have around an 8% chance to drop, so you can use this to get pretty much any item that a wandering trader can offer if you're able to time it right. One of the most requested features in Minecraft history have been wool slabs and stairs, and Mojang is finally adding them in all 16 colors in the upcoming 26.3 game drop. These stairs and slabs will surely be quite useful in all sorts of new builds, and Mojang is already utilizing them too in the new abandoned camps, which are a new structure that can be found in 18 different biomes across your Minecraft world. These camps feature an extinguished campfire along with some cobwebs, the new wool stairs as the body of the tent, and of course a chest with some basic loot such as copper tools and armor, fishing rods, bundles, and more. That loot is pretty useful in the early game, but it gets even better as these camps have a small chance to contain a copper chest instead, which has a completely different loot table that can include potions, iron tools, and even diamonds. One more new block that is also featured in the new camps is the straw bed, which only requires 3 hay bales to craft 4 of them. These work just like normal beds, except they're actually way more useful since they don't reset your spawn point, so you can use them to skip through the night while exploring and never have to worry about messing up your spawn point. The catch is that these beds are fragile, so they'll break after being slept in, but that's a fair trade-off for all the utility they provide at such a cheap cost. And before you get any ideas about using these cheap new beds to mine for ancient debris, they actually don't explode in the nether and end, as they'll instead just break if you try to sleep in one. Speaking of new ways to rest in-game, this update will also be adding cushions, which are crafted with the new wool slabs and come in all 16 different dye colors. These cushions can be placed on the ground or used as part part of a chair build, but either way they allow the player to directly sit on them, which is something that Minecraft players have never been able to do in the 17 years since Notch made the game. These cushions are such a nice addition, and I can't wait to see all the new chair and couch designs people will come up with now. One of the most exciting new features in this update is the new dappled forest, which is essentially a fall or autumn themed biome with the new poplar trees. These trees have unique leaves that come in red, orange, and yellow, and when grown from saplings they have a random chance to spawn with any of these colors. On top of that, the poplar trees also bring an entirely new wood set called poplar wood, which is a really nice looking gray wood that has a bit more color and personality than pale oak. Another amazing addition in this new biome is the shelf mushroom, which will naturally grow on fallen poplar trees and dappled forests. These mushrooms are bouncy just like slime blocks, and they come in two different sizes, with the small size dropping 1 shelf mushroom when broken and the large one dropping 2. These will add a ton of new possibilities for building, but also for parkour due to their unique shape, different sizing options, and interesting bouncing mechanic. This update also brings an entirely new plant, the red shrub. This shrub is unique since, unlike tall grass, it doesn't change colors if placed in different biomes. It can be placed on any dirt, grass, mud, or moss variant just like most other plants, and if you use bone meal on it, it will grow another red shrub on a neighboring block. It's worth noting that this shrub does not require shears to collect, as you can just break it by hand and it will drop. Also, this new shrub is one of the few plants that cannot be snow logged in Bedrock Edition. In Bedrock Edition, drowns with tridents would hit you with a melee attack if you got too close instead of throwing, and this new update will add this same behavior to Java as well. The new shelf mushroom has another super interesting use, which is that if you put the block on your head, it will actually give you what looks like a duck beak, similarly to how the end rod gets placed like a unicorn horn. Cushions are the new fastest travel method in all of Minecraft, and it's not even close. Since cushions can be right-clicked while you're a few blocks away and they'll instantly teleport you to them to put you in a sitting position, we can just build a line of cushions that are 2 blocks apart and spam right-click to travel pretty quickly. But to make this way faster, simply rebind interact to a keyboard button instead of a mouse button, because then you can just hold down that button and you'll move extremely quickly to the end of your cushion track. If you make corner stairs like this and do the same thing upside down on top, then place cushions on the stairs, you can sit in the corner like this and you'll be completely inside the block. If you take this setup underground, you can completely see through blocks and see all the nearby caves and ores, almost like you have X-ray, except that it's completely legal since you aren't using any mods or cheats. By placing all of these unique blocks and topping them off with cushions, we get over 17 different heights within a single block, which is about 1 for every pixel height. This means we can create very smooth slopes and a ton of different customizable heights to sit at, which will be a game changer for all types of building in Minecraft. One of the most insane features with the new cushion is that it will turn black if placed mostly inside another block, and if this block happens to be a redstone lamp, you can actually power it to light up the cushion. This is already insane as it allows for LED lighting inside of Minecraft, but what makes this actually revolutionary is that we can use copper bulbs to make different light levels or shades of the 16 colors as well. And if we fill in the gaps with even more different light levels from partially filled respawn anchors, sculk blocks, crying obsidian, magma blocks, and a smelting furnace, we can actually get 11 different light levels, making for a total of 176 different colored lights, all without any mods or commands. Hidden bases have always been a popular thing to do inside of Minecraft, but the cushion allows for a truly impossible to find new kind. To make it, place stairs like we did with the X-ray trick, with one right side up and the other upside down, then place the same block in lines on either side to complete the wall. Now, when you approach from the flat side of the wall, all the blocks look the same, but with some trial and error, if you click in just the right spot, you can sit on the cushion and then press shift to get off of it, allowing you to clip through the wall and into your secret base. Another method that is super clever is to place a button on the ground that opens up a secret passage with a sticky piston. Then you can cover up the button with a cushion, and now you'll have to sit on the cushion and press the invisible button to open the passageway. We already went over fast travel with cushions, but this can be done vertically as well to make the fastest elevators possible in Minecraft, and they're way easier to set up than boat or minecart elevators. Simply place buttons, signs, or similar small blocks to support the cushions, then keep stacking cushions with about 3 blocks of distance in between. And if you rebind your interact key like we talked about before, you can go all the way from the bottom bedrock to the build height limit in a matter of seconds, which is absolutely insane. By placing a cushion on the foot of the bed, it will look like a blanket when a villager gets into the bed to sleep. This looks super good, and you can match the color of the bed with the same color cushion for a realistic look, or switch up the colors for some extra customization. Speaking of beds, if you place a cushion at the right height and then quickly replace its support with a bed, you can actually sit on the edge of your bed and it will still function to sleep in as well. And the best part is that the cushion won't even be visible if you do it right, which makes it a crazy trick that you can use to gaslight your friends. Look at this flying carpet. It's made by entering this command into a repeating command block, at which point sitting on the cushion will cause it to fly around in the direction you're looking, which looks crazy crazy. This can't be done without commands unfortunately, but who knows, maybe Mojang will add an enchanted magic carpet to vanilla in the future. We can also place brown cushions at different heights within a decorated pot, and it will give us a bunch of different pot shapes, which makes pottery much more customizable and unique. You can't normally stack cushions on top of each other as they need a solid block to support them, but by using 2 snow layers per cushion, we can gradually build up a full stack like this and then quickly replace the snow with something like a decorated pot to ensure the cushions don't break. This allows you to make some fun designs or patterns out of only cushions. We all know snow logging is a feature exclusive to Bedrock Edition, but we can do it in Java now as well by using a white cushion. Simply place the cushion inside of the plant's hitbox and it will look just like a snow-logged plant from Bedrock. There are rare cases where we can actually use a variable height block to glitch a cushion upwards. There are only 2 cases of this that we currently know about, one being farmland, which will push a cushion upward when it turns back into dirt since it gets slightly taller. And the other case is the end portal frame, which when filled in with an eye gets a few pixels taller as well and can push the cushion upwards. Speaking of pixels, we can create a super small single pixel gap in vanilla Minecraft by placing the cushion on an activated pressure plate, which will hold it down and create the smallest gap in all of Minecraft. And I'm sure all of you love building new traps to terrorize your friends with, and I've got a great one for you to try out. Simply fill a cauldron with lava and then place a cushion near the top like this. Tell your friends you made them a chair, and then when they sit on the cushion, they'll start burning even though they won't be able to see the lava. Players had previously built playable Doom in Minecraft, but with the new LED and brightness mechanics introduced with cushions, players were now able to make a full color version. This looks insane and is just scratching the surface of what LEDs can do, since I'm sure players will make far more complex contraptions like TVs and billboards with these soon enough. We can use cushions to get on top of the nether roof without any ender pearls or ladders. Simply place a cushion on top of a slab right below the top layer of bedrock in the nether, and then when you sit on it, you can press shift to get off of it and then simply jump once more to get onto the bedrock. Sometimes you need to place another cushion once you're up and sit in that one to fully get yourself unstuck, but either way, it's a much more early game friendly option. Just make sure you bring some materials to build a portal up here so you can escape, or if you're on bedrock, just exit the world and go back in, and the game will automatically remove you from the nether roof since you can't build there in that version anyway. Cushions have a weakness when used in your builds, as any projectiles such as arrows, wind charges, or even tridents will break the cushion on impact. This can be really annoying if you spend a lot of time getting a cushion into just the right spot and then it all comes crumbling down from a simple skeleton's arrow, so make sure to keep your build protected. Cushions can be placed into flowing or still water sources and they won't break. We can use this fact to create fully hidden water sources behind cushions, which adds a lot of options for decoration or just cleaning up your item and mob farms. Since the cushion can be placed inside of non-full blocks like stairs, we can actually put one on top of 2 layers of snow and then quickly replace the snow with some stairs. Then if you click in just the right spot, you can sit perfectly on the stairs without the cushion even visible, which is another great way to confuse your friends when the update drops. Vertical slabs are finally in Minecraft, as while the item itself doesn't exist, you can use cushions and stairs to create half blocks in the vertical direction. This can also be done with corner stairs to make small little quarter blocks that add a lot more options for more compact pixel art and other builds. Similarly, you can place the cushion on top of a wall block and it will look like a small square surrounded by a border that is only a quarter block thick on each side. This is another huge discovery that will allow for all sorts of unique block combos. Usually the player is not able to place any blocks inside of an end portal without just breaking it, since the portal block is already occupying that space. Well, since cushions are entities, we can actually place them inside the portal like this, and not only does it look cool and allow for customizable portals, but it also doesn't prevent you from using the portal like normal, which is due to the cushion's lack of a hitbox. This trick kind of works for end portals too, as you can cover them up completely with cushions and any unsuspecting players walking around in that area will fall straight through and end up in the end dimension, which will be sure to confuse them. Railways and iceboat paths are both extremely popular methods of fast travel across the Minecraft world, but some players don't really like how they look. Well, a good solution for this is to cover them up with cushions, as this allows you to completely cover up the rails or ice while also customizing your roads at the same time, and you can still use boats in Minecraft completely normally, as they'll just phase right through the cushions like they're not even there. Another ugly element to Minecraft can be redstone, and luckily we can use a similar trick to hide this as well. Redstone elements like redstone dust, repeaters, and comparators can have cushions placed to hide or mostly hide their textures, which again allows for some customization and the ability to hide these elements without using actual blocks. The cushion is the newest way to MLG clutch, since if your timing is good, you can right click it to sit on it and stop your fall. This is nearly impossible if the cushion isn't already placed, but if you're a pro, you can place it and clutch at the same time. You can make these cool floating redstone lamps with invisible power sources by using the new cushion. Simply place a pressure plate on top of a redstone lamp, then step on the pressure plate and place the cushion of your choice onto the very edge of the block. Then when you get off, the pressure plate will stay activated permanently, allowing for a unique lighting option. I alluded to this in an earlier entry, but cushions are amazing for making fake floors that people will fall right through when running. If someone is chasing you and you have one of these set up, you can jump and right click at the last second to sit on the furthest cushion, and they'll likely not notice and just fall through. Just make sure the whole below is deep enough so that they can't just hop right back onto a cushion from below. Color coding your chest is now super easy with the new cushions. Simply place different cushion colors inside of your chests, and this will keep them organized and effectively labeled without preventing them from being opened, since the cushion is just an entity rather than a block. Players love putting carpets on their fences so that they can jump in and out without the animals being able to leave their pens. But you can't really put carpets onto fence gates, as carpets are solid and cannot be walked through. If you want to maintain the look of your farm, simply place a cushion of the same color onto the fence gates, as this keeps things seamless while still letting you walk through the open fence gate when you need to. We can make what looks like dust particles for an old couch build by simply putting lit candles below a cushion, as just the black smoke particles will occasionally poke through. We can also use cushions to hide light sources. Similarly to walls, which aren't full blocks, cushions can be placed to cover up light sources but still allow the ambient light to pass through. This is very useful, as walls only work for this when done horizontally, but if you want to hide lights on your floors, the cushion is the best way by far. If you place a trapdoor inside of a cushion, you can create a next level secret base entrance. To open it, you have to sit on the cushion and aim at the right spot to open the trapdoor, then you can sink down into the base and close it behind you. This works well since a player that tries to jump on the cushion to see if they fall into anything will be stopped by the trapdoor and assume it's a solid block. We can also make bouncy cushions by simply placing the new shelf mushroom or slime blocks below the cushion. Since the cushion lacks a hitbox, you'll just bounce on the block below like normal, but it can make for a super convincing bouncy couch or bed. Falling dripstone is interesting, since if it falls on your head, it will damage you, but if it falls on a cushion, the cushion will not break at all. This doesn't make a lot of sense, since it seems like the falling dripstone would be a projectile, but apparently it isn't. Cushions are yet another strange item that can be used as fuel in a furnace, just like other wool-based blocks. But only use them in an emergency, as you can only smelt one item per cushion, which means they're not very efficient when used as fuel. Since cushions are entities, you can name them in an anvil, and similarly to boats and minecarts, when you place them down, they will retain their name. This name can be seen when hovering over the cushion, and it will even retain its name when broken. Interestingly, cushions only stack to 16 in your inventory, similarly to signs, even though similar items like item frames can stack up to 64. Another effect of the cushion being an entity is that it does not show up on a map. This means you can't use them to make map art, but also, when moving further away from cushions, they will become invisible on your screen just like some other entities. Cushions can actually spawn naturally, since they're an included block that is possible to be generated with the new abandoned camps. In fact, the pink cushion is the rarest to naturally generate, since it is more common in the Cherry Groves biome, the rarest biome that the camps are able to generate in. Subscribe so you never miss another upload, and if you want to see more Minecraft facts, click here.